Imagine a world where a blinding streak of light devoured humanity, transforming our vibrant blue planet into a desolate, scorched desert grave. A ruthless reality where the weak lose their status, their property, and their very lives. Enter Zeon, betrayed, broken, and sent to the mines to be eaten alive. He plunges straight into the tooth-filled maw of a colossal sandworm. But instead of dying, his golden eyes snap wide open. Deep within the shifting sands, a terrifying, forbidden power ignites. The legendary Sandmancer has awakened. From surviving molten volcanic dungeons to unlocking the lethal Sand Blaster technique, Zeon is dragged into a brutal gamble for survival by a weapon-wielding, battle-crazed lunatic named Klexi. Together, they must cross a lawless wasteland swarming with giant, high-frequency wolf ant queens, toxic hyenas, and a massive, walking mobile fortress. Get ready, because in this insane world, Zeon is about to rewrite the rules of power. Buckle up. The stage is set, and the real massacre begins right now. Zeon always knew the brutal truth about his reality. He thought, I've lived a dog's life in this strong-eat-weak world. It was a ruthless place, a world where the weak lose their property, their status, and even their very lives. Zeon reached out desperately, the harsh truth weighing heavily on him. He gritted his teeth and declared, that's why I dash. Before he could finish, a catastrophic event swallowed him whole. The earth gave way, plunging the vehicle into a massive, terrifying maw. As darkness consumed him, a grim realization settled in. He whispered, I am dying because I'm pathetic and weak. But to understand how he ended up in this nightmare, we need to look back at the origins of the Sandmancer of the burning desert. Let me set the stage for you. About 100 years ago, a chilling, brilliant beam of light fell upon the earth. It wasn't a beacon of hope. That ominous light began to mercilessly devour every living being on the planet. And just like that, the vibrant blue planet that was once home to all life soon became a massive, desolate desert grave. Faced with total annihilation, all the few remaining humans could do was build themselves a formidable fortress. Fast forward to today. Zeon sat quietly on a rusted transport bus, glaring out the window. He muttered, why leave only these vermin behind? Suddenly, with a heavy thud, a massive fist slammed into Zeon's face, throwing him hard against the glass. A hulking brute of a man flashed a menacing, pointed grin. He sneered, oops. My hand slipped. The large man stood tall, feigning regret. Sorry, tell me your name, so I can apologize. Zeon slowly looked up, his golden eyes filled with quiet rage. He answered coldly, it's Thon. The bully threw his head back and laughed uproariously. Oh, you only have one name? Don't you have several dads? Zeon's silence spoke volumes. The bully leaned in, highly amused. Oh, look at this guy. He's getting mad? Ha ha ha. Zeon thought to himself, the guys on this bus to the mines usually have one thing in common. The giant wrapped a heavy, tattooed arm around Zeon's neck. Wipe that look off your face. We're in the same boat, so shouldn't we get along? Zeon knew the harsh reality of their situation. Not a single one of them is an actual miner. He looked directly at the towering man and asked plainly, what did you get caught for? Zeon deduced the truth. Either a criminal or a fugitive. It's usually one or the other. Assault? Fraud? Theft? He locked eyes with his attacker. In my opinion, with a sudden, explosive motion, Zeon launched a fierce kick right into the bully's face. The massive man was sent tumbling backward with a loud crash, slamming heavily into the seats. Zeon stood up slowly, his posture rigid. You're wrong, you idiot. Want me to tell you? His expression darkened into something lethal. It's murder. But here's the catch. Zeon remembered the towering, neon-lit skyline of his past. He reasoned, technically, I didn't end a person's life. Because in Neo's soul, only the powerful are considered people. In his memory, he stood over a fallen figure. He rationalized, it's no big deal. What's one more piece of trash in a junkyard? A rat who came to steal my stuff just happened to face the consequences on its own. But as he looked at the lifeless thief, panic set in. He cursed, realizing he didn't know it was a pet rat. The thief's final, desperate words echoed in his mind. Hey, my brother is Lee Jiryung, you know? You're dead meat soon too, you piece of garbage. Zeon's eyes widened in sheer terror. Lee Jiryung wasn't just a man. He was an imposing figure surrounded by crackling lightning. Zeon recalled the horrific truth. If the powerful are people, then an awakened is a god above them. The gravity of his mistake was monumental. A mere rat ended up offending a god. Cold sweat beaded on Zeon's forehead as pure dread washed over him. He recalled, rumors spread that Lee Jiryung was looking for me, and by the time I snapped out of it, I'd already crawled onto the bus for the mines. A sharp, angry voice snapped him back to the present. Hey! Zeon blinked, startled back into the chaotic reality of the bus. The bully wiped his bleeding nose, a terrifying grin spreading across his face. Are you done? Zeon looked down in sudden confusion. What? Why's my hand cut? A chilling realization hit Zeon like a truck. No way. With incredible, unseen force, Zeon was violently hurled through the air, crashing across the bus interior. He hit the floor with a devastating impact, crying out in sheer agony. The giant cracked his knuckles menacingly. You should have said so earlier. I came here for the same reason. I might have treated you like a cute little brother, right? But you crossed the line way too far. Zeon panicked. Nonsense. Are you kidding me? To avoid an awakened, I struggled so hard to escape. Of all things, why this? The man loomed over him like a predator. I think you need a little lesson from me. Swirling, fiery energy ignited around the bully's fists. He yelled. Everyone agrees, right? The surrounding passengers screamed in horror. He's an awakened. Zeon was trapped in an enclosed space with the very thing he feared most. An awakened. Suddenly, the entire bus violently lurched forward. Passengers were thrown off balance in confusion. Outside, the heavy transport vehicle crashed forcefully, tilting dangerously into the shifting desert sands. The awakened bully stumbled, absolutely furious. Ard, what the nonsense? Hey, drive straight, will you? But as they looked toward the driver's seat, a grim silence fell. The driver was completely unresponsive. The bully muttered, isn't. Clutching his bleeding head, the brute yelled, what the nonsense are you babbling about? He peered through the shattered windshield, and his fiery anger quickly turned to ice-cold dread. He whispered no. Denial set in rapidly. He stammered, terrified. It wasn't. I said it wasn't. We shouldn't have been going to the mines. Blood ran down his shocked face. He stared into the abyss and asked, What the hell are you? The awful truth was finally revealed. The bus was spiraling down into the gigantic, tooth-filled maw of a colossal sandworm. We were sent to be eaten. Complete chaos erupted as passengers tumbled over each other, screaming in absolute terror. As everything fell apart, Zeon reflected. Looking back, it was always a repetition of the same situation. He reached out hopelessly as the vehicle was swallowed entirely by the churning desert. In a brief memory, a younger Zeon sat alone in the dark, whether in Neo's soul, encountering an awakened, or being devoured by a sandworm. None of it is unusual. He fought frantically against the suffocating tide of the sinking sand. He accepted the brutal rule of his reality, because in this world, it's only natural for the strong to take from the weak. A single tear mixed with sweat fell slowly from Zeon's eye. He concluded with absolute certainty. So, the reason I'm dying is... His hand reached out one last time as the monstrous jaws clamped shut, blocking out the light. Probably because I'm a weak fool. As he faded away, he thought, it's a story so cliché and obvious it makes me yawn. But even the pitch black, a small spark remained. I can imagine it, though, the fantasy that if I were even a little bit stronger, I wouldn't have died like this. His inner voice grew quiet. Well, it's just pointless rambling at this point. For a moment, all was completely still in the vast, empty desert. Then, with a soft sliding sound, something shifted beneath the surface. A hand, scarred and trembling, burst through the heavy sand. It clawed desperately at the earth, a lone symbol of defiance against death itself. Underground, Zeon's golden eyes snapped wide open. With a massive gasp, he broke free from his sandy grave, fresh air filling his desperate lungs. He threw his head back, panting heavily, alive against all impossible odds. Strange, glowing energy began to circulate through his entire body, like veins of pure starlight. As he surveyed his surroundings, he saw the unimaginable, a ruined Statue of Liberty, half buried in the desert. Zeon's eyes widened in profound shock and absolute awe. The crumbled, rusted remains of the Eiffel Tower protruded from the endless dunes. An entire civilization, massive skyscrapers and grand cities, all reduced to desolate ruins. His glowing golden eye reflected the astonishing, terrifying landscape. Massive concrete structures hung precariously over the abyss, crumbling into the dust. Zeon panted, trying to process the sheer, impossible scale of the devastation. Above him, a cosmic vision of the planet suspended in a chaotic asteroid field flashed in his mind. A brilliant, blazing light ignited deep within his pupil, signaling an awakening. Drawing upon an unknown, terrifying power, he thrust his hand forward and unleashed a devastating attack. He roared blaster. A concentrated beam of pure, raw force obliterated the massive sandworm in a spectacular explosion. Hanging onto the edge of a cliff, Zeon's resolve hardened into steel. He declared, I will survive. Covered in the monster's blue fluid, he glared out at the ruins. In this godforsaken world where everything has turned to sand, he turned his back on the carnage, walking forward with unyielding purpose. I will, no matter what. With fiercely glowing eyes and a determined smirk, Zeon embraced his new reality. He wasn't weak anymore. Standing before the massive, defeated beast, he made a final promise. I will survive at all costs. The desert wind howled around Zeon as he stood there, his clothes torn and his body battered. He looked down at his trembling hand, the intense energy surging through him. This pain, he whispered to himself, I can feel it, clear as day. He clenched his fist tightly, a fierce determination flashing in his golden eyes. Every cell in my body is going wild, he declared. This is my awakening. But his moment of triumph was interrupted by a deafening roar. A colossal sandworm loomed over him, its gaping maw dripping with dark, viscous fluid. The monstrous beast plunged downward with a massive crash, sending clouds of dust into the air. Zeon barely had time to react. Pinned against the rocky wall, Zeon braced himself. Yeah, come on, he gritted out, preparing for the worst. Suddenly, a strong hand gripped him tightly from behind. A deep voice warned him. Against the test subject, you were just in the way. Zeon's golden eyes widened in shock. What was happening? With a powerful heave, he was thrown backward. He flew through the air as the sheer force of the impact created a heavy thud against the sandy ground. He hit the ground hard, tumbling and sliding across the dunes with a sharp hiss of shifting sand. He groaned in pain. Ugh. Spitting out grit, Zeon struggled to his knees. What the heck? Who was that guy? He thought, bewildered. He stuttered out a question, asking when the man had even gotten there. He gasped, his breath catching in his throat. He mumbled, so close, before a cheerful voice interrupted. Hey! A massive greatsword was impaled deep into the stone, dark blue fluid erupting from the strike like a geyser. A calm voice noted, Damn, what is he made of? He will not go down. Another voice replied, Afraid of heights. Standing atop the colossal weapon was a rugged man in a gray overcoat. Captain Jang Yongbyum. Looking down with complete indifference, he stated, Then let me drop you back down. With a swift, powerful motion, the captain brought his boot down hard on the massive hilt. To the first floor, he finished. A thunderous explosion echoed across the wasteland. The sheer force drove the blade deeper, shattering the earth and crushing the monster in a spectacular display of power. Zeon shielded his face from the intense shockwave, completely stunned. What the? He exclaimed. As the dust settled, the captain effortlessly pulled his greatsword from the defeated beast. Zeon stared in awe, thinking he took down a sandworm in an instant. A familiar sensation still hummed beneath his skin. Ah, this feeling is not fading, so this is awakening. Zeon muttered that he had never seen an awaken like that before. Suddenly, a vibrant blue-haired girl named Giselle popped up beside him with a massive grin. Jang Yongbyum. That is our captain, she cheered enthusiastically. She clung to Zeon's arm, laughing brightly. See, that is why he is the captain. It is not that the fastest he has ever taken one down. Zeon, completely overwhelmed, stuttered out a response, wondering when he had even done that. Still reeling, Zeon realized something astonishing. He is way stronger than he looks, he thought. But then, a sudden chill crept up his sleeve. He stuttered slightly, telling himself to wait a second, noticing his arm was going cold. As the captain casually walked towards them, dragging his massive sword, he sighed, A sandworm is not exactly hard to deal with. And Giselle. Giselle immediately stood at attention, saluting playfully, Yes, sir. The captain fixed her with a stern, unflinching glare. He let out a long breath, clearly exasperated by her antics. Ugh, seriously. TC, damn it, he muttered. Giselle did not miss a beat. She threw up a crisp, exaggerated salute, her fangs showing in a wide, chaotic grin. Without warning, she grabbed Zeon by the arm and swept his legs out from under him with a swift kick. With a heavy thud, Zeon hit the sand. Giselle immediately pinned him down, locking his arm in a tight grip. NGH, Zeon grunted, struggling against her surprising strength. She playfully tore away the bandages on his arm. All right, what is this guy's rank and ability, I wonder, she sang out. Let's take a look. She dramatically revealed his forearm. But here is the catch. As she looked closer, her bright expression faded into pure confusion. Huh, she called out to the captain, completely baffled. Captain? This guy is not awakened. Zeon panicked, struggling in the dirt. He stuttered, asking what she meant, insisting that was nonsense. She flipped him over with a spin. Look, he does not have a rank badge, she shouted to the captain. Zeon yelled in frustration. Are you insane? Hurry up. Forced face first into the sand, Zeon felt a surge of disbelief. Seriously? He thought frantically. He definitely awakened, did not he? There is no way an awakened would not have one. The commotion was cut short by a furious shout. The green-haired driver leaned out of their armored vehicle, slamming his hand against the door. Stop standing around. Move. I said the sun is going down. Hurry it up, he yelled. Giselle looked up, still holding the battered Zeon. Captain, what should we do with him? Leave him like this, and he will die, she asked. Zeon glared at her, thinking, You nearly snapped his arm and now. Zeon's golden eyes narrowed, silently assessing his captors and his own precarious situation. Captain Jang Yongbyum turned away indifferently. Toss him in the dodge. He was heading toward the mines anyway, he ordered. Giselle instantly saluted, shouting, Yes, sir. Soon, the heavy armored vehicle was tearing across the vast, barren dunes, leaving a trail of dust in its wake. Inside, the tension was high. The green-haired driver yelled at the captain. Why do you keep rushing in alone? I told you, stop making things harder than they need to be. He continued to scream, while Giselle just laughed in the background. In the cargo hold, Zeon lay bound and exhausted, listening to the bickering. How far to the mines? He wondered. As the driver continued to scream about the setting sun, Zeon sarcastically muttered, "Nice ride," followed by a heavy sigh. Now, this is where it gets interesting. As Zeon lay quietly, tiny streams of sand began to slip through the cracks of the vehicle, swirling gently toward his face. The fine, golden grains poured over him like a liquid, reacting to his very presence. He managed to sit up, his bound hands resting on his lap as the sand danced around him. The sand moves the way I want. No doubt about it. I have awakened something. He realized. He stared at his wrists, deeply confused. But why cannot they see my rank badge? He wondered. He noticed the color was slightly off, questioning if it was orange. He inspected the faint, almost invisible lines glowing beneath his skin. It is the same color as sand, he noted. He recalled the rules of their world. The glow of a rank badge reflects and awakens affinity. He remembered Giselle's vibrant energy. Magic types glow blue. He held out his palm, watching the earth swirl gracefully around his fingers. Though there are rare cases with different affinities, he thought. The sand wrapped around his arms like living armor, humming with latent power. A power that controls sand. I have never even heard of it, he marveled. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. The system shows the lowest grade, F rank, but, he thought, I can feel it. This power has endless potential, like the desert itself. A sharp, confident grin spread across his face, revealing his fierce resolve. Forming a perfect sphere of sand between his bound hands, he made a silent vow. I will wait until this power is truly mine. Until that day comes, I will hide it and endure. His ambition grew vast and boundless, much like the wasteland outside. The entire desert, this whole world, will become my stage, he promised himself. The vehicle eventually slowed to a halt beneath towering, jagged rock formations. They had finally arrived. Zeon stepped out, still bound, observing the massive industrial complex carved into the stone. So, this is the Mana Stone Mine, he thought, glancing around. There is even a checkpoint. Looks normal enough for now. A bulky guard with reddish-brown hair shoved him forward roughly. Hey, you, come with me, the guard yelled. Zeon glared back, retorting calmly. You still have not untied me. The guard snapped, threatening to shut him up. As Zeon was marched away into the dimly lit facility, he lazily replied, Yeah. Behind him, Giselle playfully stretched her arms near the captain. Watching him go, Captain Jang Yongbyum's expression darkened. Something is not right, he muttered. Giselle stretched lazily, asking if it was just because he survived. Do not overthink it. Probably just luck, she laughed. The captain's eyes narrowed, his instincts as a seasoned warrior flaring. No, he replied firmly. It was not luck. His gaze shifted back, recalling the sandy battlefield they had left behind, a look of pure bewilderment crossing his stoic face. What the hell? He whispered. He recalled the massive, dark crater left in the canyon wall, a devastating mark that definitely was not caused by his sword. That hole is... As the captain turned to walk into the fortified base, a lingering thought stayed with him. I should have at least asked his name, he thought. I have got a feeling I will see him again someday. Picture this. You're walking through the glittering, neon-drenched streets of Neo Seoul. It looks glamorous on the surface, right? Inside, it's a bustling chaos of laughter and clinking glasses. But for our guy Zeon, the vibe is a little less welcoming. A burly guard with reddish-brown hair suddenly drew a pistol, aiming it right at him. He barked, "Zip it. Sit tight and wait here until the person in charge shows up." Zeon wasn't having it. He demanded, "You're just leaving me like this?" The guard sneered. "What? You want me to put an end to your story before I go?" As the guard turned away, Zeon sighed, muttering, "No, I just mean, what am I even supposed to do here?" The guard scoffed, "Do whatever you want. Like that's going to change anything." Left alone in the grimy mine checkpoint, Zeon mumbled to himself, "Idiot. Well then, since I'm already here and starving anyway, I might as well look around for someplace to eat." Oh! His stomach led him to a little food stall. He walked up to the old vendor, calling out, "Excuse me." Suddenly, his golden eyes widened in complete surprise. He caught sight of a massive propaganda poster plastered on the wall. It proudly read, "Adventure. With our labor, let's light up Neo Seoul." The old man, cranking a strange device, handed Zeon a cup and chuckled. "Pretty inspiring, isn't it?" His weathered hands rested heavily on the counter as he continued. "It's so on the nose it's almost funny. But yeah, it fits. Neo Seoul's energy source." Zeon took a bite of a questionable meat skewer. He asked, "Isn't magic stones, is it? What's that supposed to mean?" The old man raised a single, scarred finger and pointed it dead at Zeon. With a creepy, jagged smile, the vendor explained. "Little rats like you. You do whatever you're told, and when the numbers run low, more of you crawl in on your own. What better energy source could there be?" Zeon didn't flinch. He casually retorted, "First time we've met, but you sure know a lot. Sounds like your classmates are old enough to be swimming the river Styx by now." The old man just laughed. "At my age, you start taking an interest in everything." The vendor leaned in with a sly grin. "So, how are the sandworm guts?" Zon, still chewing, replied, "Felt like going back into my mother's womb. Rumors of that have already spread." The old man threw his head back and laughed. "At this rate, you'll be sandworm droppings in no time." This place makes for a nice, cozy little escape. Zeon frowned. Escape? I came here to make money. The old man gestured with his thumb. Sure you did. Let me show you something fun. Take a look over there. He pointed to a dusty, stacked pile of boxes sitting quietly in the shadows of the cave. Zeon gave him a dry look. You senile or something? Since when's trash fun? What even is all that? The old man smiled. My collection, gathered piece by piece. The vendor's eyes darkened as he revealed the grim truth. The final remains of everyone who came here, and a preview of your future. He explained the harsh reality of the magic mine. Everyone who comes here fights going into the mine at first. They're afraid their bodies will rot away. The pressure breaks them. He continued, convinced they'll die if they go in. They sell anything and everything just to hold out a little longer. Gold coins tumbled through the darkness. But all they ever did was cling on. Nothing gets solved, and whatever's in their hands just slowly disappears. It's a tragic cycle. In the end, they all come to the same conclusion. Might be easier to just let the mine eat me. The old man sat back, his tone chillingly calm. They say people leave a name behind when they die. Trash dies and leaves nothing but trash. Zeon glared at the old-timer, completely unamused by the lecture. I'm curious what you'll leave behind. With a sharp flick, Zeon tossed his empty skewer onto the table. Yeah. How much is it? The old man held up a hand. 10 sol. Zeon exploded. Are you out of your mind? Did you wrap this meat in gold? The vendor shot back. Everything's precious down here. Even that skewer you tossed is something I can put to use. Zeon smirked, utterly defiant. Then the meat on it must have been the cheapest junk you could find. Sorry, but I don't have that kind of money. A looming shadow fell over them. A deep voice growl, trying to scam the newbie. Running off? Oh, for 10 shul. A massive group of thugs emerged from the darkness, gripping wicked meat cleavers and hunting knives. One of them was even wearing a full chef's uniform. Zeon glanced over his shoulder, a nervous smile forming. He said, sorry, but there's no way I can pay that much, so? The thugs closed in, their massive frames towering over him like a brick wall of pure intimidation. A bead of sweat rolled down Zeon's cheek. He realized he was completely trapped. The old man rested his chin on his hands, looking entirely too smug. Didn't you think it was strange? How an old man like me can openly run a shop inside the mine? Zeon was completely surrounded. Dozens of glowing red eyes and gleaming blades trapped him in a circle of certain doom. The vendor clasped his hands together, his smile practically reaching his ears. So, what are you going to do now? With a heavy thud, Zeon slammed his fist onto the table. He leaned in, trying to play it cool. He stuttered, Sir, let's not get worked up. There's no way I'd have that much money. What kind of nonsense meat is worth 10 sol anyway? Let's just talk this through. The old man chuckled softly. Short on cash? Don't worry. I'm not that cruel. I'm open to other types of payment. He had Zeon's pocket greedily. Let's see. That magic stone in your pocket looks nice. Zeon's eyes narrowed. He realized exactly what was happening. He yelled, You've even been fleecing the kids down here, huh? The vendor held out his hand, entirely unfazed. Hand it over. I'll be generous and call our debt settled. The massive chef stepped forward, his patience totally gone. He roared like hell. Do you have any idea what I've done to hold on to this? A giant, calloused hand suddenly grabbed the top of Zeon's head. He stuttered, Sir, couldn't you let slide just this once? I mean, tabs exist for a reason. But the bandana-wearing thug had enough. He pulled back his massive fist with devastating force. The thug screamed at the old man, Sir, how long are you just going to listen to this brat? Let's just crush him, little punk. Suddenly, the Zeon unleashed his awakened ability, Sand Blaster, and in an instant his hand cut and flew away in the air. The other thugs froze in absolute terror as their buddy vanished in a violent cloud of dust. The impact left a devastating mark. The sheer force of the Sand Blaster sent a massive shockwave through the cavern, blasting everyone backward. As the dust settled, Zeon stood in the center of the chaos, his golden eyes glowing with an intense, terrifying energy. Despite a huge hand still gripping his head, Zeon looked completely unfazed. A tiny trickle of crimson ran from his nose as he calmly yelled, Hichi-wai. Holding out a massive, glowing blue crystal, he presented his prize. He said, Here is the mana stone you wanted so badly. He inspected the gleaming gem with a critical eye, resting his chin on his hand. Oh, if it's this size, The old man casually offered his price. At a glance, I'd say it's worth about 100 sol. Zeon wasn't having it. He slammed his hand down, shouting, Are you serious? It should be worth at least 300 sol. What do you mean, 100 sol? Gritting his fangs with fierce intensity, Zeon shot back. Everything is precious here. Perhaps you would have preferred becoming sandworm dung instead. But the old man was impossibly fast. With a sudden blur of motion, Zeon found his face slammed hard into the table. Pinned and helpless, Zeon's hand clenched the edge of the desk in total frustration. He thought, Those arrogant fools. If I put my mind to it, I could take out that old man at least. But not yet. Not yet. A few crimson drops spilled from his bruised face, but Zeon forced a sinister, unbroken smile. Just give me a decent amount of change, old man. Nearby, a massive brute shoved a passing worker, grumbling, right, you must be careful when carrying it. There are many pickpockets and thugs around here. There's already one right in front of me. The old man leaned back with a sly grin, pointing a weathered finger. Since it's our first deal, I'll give you back a generous amount of change. Pick one item from over there. He gestured to a dusty shelf packed to the brim with random clutter. If it's just one, I'll give you any item you want. Zeon started rummaging through the chaotic pile, picking up a bizarre wooden mask. He sighed, good grief. I thought there'd be something impressive, but it's just a total junkyard. Watching the young survivor dig through the garbage, the old man thought, there has to be something worth picking. What an interesting fellow. Zeon proceeded to put on the most ridiculous combination of items he could find. A fake nose, mustache, glasses, and even a plunger hat. The old man thought, that obsession with never losing out on a deal? How long has it been since I've seen such petty vitality? Suddenly, Zeon froze, his goofy glasses slipping down slightly. The old man asked, anything else? Zeon muttered, this is... Taking off the silly disguise, his glowing golden eyes locked onto a specific object. The old man noted, oh, that was left behind by a caravan a while ago. Zeon held up a beautifully ornate hourglass. I don't think anything better will turn up, even if I keep looking. I'll take this. The old man slapped Zeon forcefully on the back, nearly knocking the wind out of him. You certainly take an interest in useless things. Zeon brushed it off, replying, yeah. Before walking away, Zeon paused. By the way, staring off into the glowing, subterranean city, he asked, what's your name, old man? The old man shouted his answer into the echoing cavern, Klexi. Zeon glanced back with a smirk. Klexi, you old geezer. Let's never see each other again. As they finally walked their separate ways, Klexi let out a hearty laugh. Chuckle. We'll see about that, kid. Later, back in his assigned space, the ancient hourglass sat perfectly still on the metallic floor. Zeon laid flat on his stomach, watching the dark sand drain away. About 10 minutes until it's all gone. He sat cross-legged in the cramped miner's dormitory, focusing his mind entirely. Good then. Tilting his head back, he took a deep, steadying breath. He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with intense focus. Reaching out with glowing hands, he commanded the object with pure willpower. Move. The hourglass remained completely motionless. Not a single grain of sand shifted out of place. Frustrated, Zeon grabbed his head and gritted his teeth. Tisk. It wasn't an item related to my awakening. He rested his chin on his palm, staring quietly. I'm sure it's my first time seeing it. But here's the catch. The artifact glowed with an eerie light among his junk. He thought, but I felt a strange sense of déjà vu, as if it were prepared just for me. Staring through the glass, he recalled his own reflection from the junkyard. As if it were familiar, as if it were calling to me, but a new sensation. What is this emotion? Suddenly, the peaceful moment shattered. The door was violently kicked open by Park Manhwa, who roared, Are you the new brat who came in today? The massive overseer marched in, veins bulging in absolute rage. Hey, you arrogance! Why aren't you crawling over to the mine? Do I, Park Manhwa, have to come all the way here to get you? Zeon stood his ground, glaring right back. I'm not an arrogance. I'm Zeon. You should have told me where to go in the first PL. Before he could even finish, Park Manhwa delivered a devastating strike, sending Zeon flying through the air with a heavy crash. Park clenched his massive, scarred fist tightly. He mercilessly slammed Zeon down into the floorboards. Shut your mouth! The overseer rained down brutal stomps, yelling, Where do you think? What do you think you're talking back? Do I look easy to you? Do you think I'm a joke? Huh? The assault was relentless. A moron who couldn't even awaken talking back like a brat. God damn it. Trash like you should just shut up and take a beating. Panting heavily, Park Manhwa glared down at the bruised boy. Just follow me quickly if you understand. Trembling from the devastating impact, Zeon clutched his aching arm, struggling to stand up. With a feral glare and clenched fangs, Zeon thought, Phew, what a foul personality. Park Manhwa, I'll remember that. I will definitely end your miserable life. They soon arrived at the gloomy, steam-filled entrance to the Sector 3 mine. A nervous miner greeted them. Welcome, Mr. Park Manhwa. Park immediately barked. Just issue this brat his equipment. The miner hurriedly replied, Yes, sir. The jittery miner hastily strapped a safety vest and helmet onto Zeon. Bring out the mana stones once you mine them. Got it. Answer me, he instructed. Then he added, The cost of equipment and food will be deducted from your daily wage. Zeon flatly asked, Is that all? How much is the daily wage? A heavy pickaxe suddenly came crashing down onto Zeon's head, shattering his helmet with a loud crack. Park Manhwa loomed over him, gripping the pickaxe handle. Do you have to be taught how to use a pickaxe? The cost of the helmet will be deducted from your daily wage. So, keep that in mind. Arrogance. Piece of trash. As Zeon fell backward, Park ordered his subordinate, Send this brat to shaft 972. The miner flinched. If it's shaft 972, it's still. Park completely lost his mind, grabbing the miner and screaming. Are you gonna go? Are you gonna go instead? Answer me, you piece of trash. The terrified man stuttered that he understood. Let's go quickly. The frantic miner dragged Zeon away into the dark tunnel. Park shouted after them, "Don't even think about crawling out until you've mined some mana stones, because I'll literally end you." Zeon nonchalantly waved back. Yeah, screw you," Park screamed. "I can hear you, brat." Deep in the vast, echoing underground caverns, a voice broke the heavy silence. The unnamed miner turned to Zeon and casually said, "You are unlucky. Of all days, you had to come on the day Park Manhwa lost everything gambling." Zeon glanced around the dimly lit path, raising an eyebrow. He asked, "There's a gambling den here too?" The miner chuckled grimly. "Of course. They've got prostitution, booze, and even drugs. Just like Neo Soul in that regard." They stepped into a rusty, screeching elevator. "Well, with idiots like Park Manhwa around, business must be booming," the miner scoffed. Zeon let out a dry laugh, remarking that he was pretty bold. The miner glanced at his own hands, sighing about having to swing a pickaxe because he had baby-soft skin and bruised easily. He added, "You probably will not have to worry about getting hurt." The elevator continued its slow, grinding descent. The miner's face fell into dark shadows. Because no one has ever gotten injured there, not even one. "Oh, we are here." The metal gates slid open with a sharp squeal, revealing a cavern so dark it seemed to swallow the light. "So this is Shaft 972, the miner stated. Zeon stepped out confidently, resting the pickaxe on his shoulder. "I just need to mine some mana stones, right? I will be right back with Tish." The miner interrupted coldly, "You will not be coming back." The elevator doors slammed shut. From behind the metal cage, the miner revealed the chilling truth. "Over a dozen people have already vanished here. I know 4 of them personally. Whether they're dead or what, no one even knows why." Looking down with a heavy mixture of guilt and pity, the miner murmured, "I am sorry. And thank you." His eyes were wide with lingering terror as he finished, for going into a place nobody else wants to. With a loud mechanical whir, the elevator shot upward. Panic hit Zeon like a truck. He stuttered, begging him to wait. Realizing that meant they were all dead, he shouted, "Where are you going? You're leaving me alone in a hellhole like this." "Hey!" Silence. Only the faint, distant echo of machinery answered him. Zeon stared up into the empty shaft, completely dumbfounded. He muttered, "He is really leaving? Seriously?" His frustration boiled over into absolute rage. He swung his pickaxe wildly at the rocky wall, screaming, "Arg, you sons of arrogance. Just because I rubbed them the wrong way, to dump me in a place like this." But Zeon swung way too hard. With a sharp crack, the heavy metal head slipped right off the wooden handle. He cursed, "You should all just die." The metal pickaxe head clattered and bounced deep into the dark, foggy tunnel. Zeon desperately reached out, yelling, "Holy nonsense, my pickaxe. Come back." With a heavy sigh, Zeon trudged deeper into the cavern. A thick, eerie mist began swirling around his ankles. He narrowed his eyes, wondering, what is this place? Taking a deep breath, he noticed something alarming. "I was too angry to notice earlier, but the mana is incredibly dense for an underground shaft. Did the others not sense it because they're just ordinary people?" The red mist grew overwhelmingly thick. He covered his mouth, coughing slightly. "It is getting thicker the further in I go. An ordinary person would have suffered from mana oversaturation by now. Where the heck is all this mana coming from?" Suddenly, Zeon's eyes widened. He spotted something through the crimson haze. There was, resting on the dusty ground. "Found it! My pickaxe!" he exclaimed. He stepped forward, relieved. "Haha, the handle snapped, but at least I found it." But as his foot landed, the solid ground beneath him gave way with a soft squelch. Without warning, a massive, swirling vortex of red energy erupted beneath his feet. The ground vanished. He started to say he still had some luck left, but his words were cut short. His golden pupil shrank in pure, unfiltered terror as gravity abandoned him. He plummeted into the swirling abyss. He stuttered in sheer panic, screaming, "Wait, what the heck is this? Is this a portal?" With a heavy thud, his hard hat and broken pickaxe crashed against the cold, rocky floor. The helmet's light flickered, illuminating the abandoned, broken tool in the haunting silence. Somewhere, a voice echoed ominously, "That kid is a goner too." As Zeon fell, his mind drifted to his darkest memories. A vision of himself as a young boy, standing in the pouring rain, holding a toy spaceship. The neighbors sneered. His own parents tossed him out. "So what do you expect? I just pray he does not drop dead right in front of my house." A bitter thought echoed in his mind. What kind of life was I hoping for again? Another memory flashed. Young Zeon being brutally kicked to the ground, clutching a stolen piece of meat. A man roared, "You got a death wish or something? How dare you steal our meat? I just want to never go hungry." The scene shifted. Zeon, older now, crashed through a glass window in a desperate escape, dodging furious men. Catch that little insult. I want to see what it was like to have a dream. Then, the worst memory of all, Zeon staring in horror at the unmoving body of the man he had to defeat, Lee Jiryung's brother. A voice hissed, "Do you have any idea who you just ended? Run for your life. See how far you get. Your miserable little life is over, you piece of arrogance." Instead of constantly running away in terror, But here is the catch. Li Jiryung's furious voice echoed through the crackling lightning of the portal. I do not care as long as his head is still attached. Cut off his legs if you have to, just catch him. A life where I did not have to worry about dying. The voices merged into a deafening roar. Drag that son of arrogance to Li Jiryung right this second. Zeon gasped for air, his eyes filled with a desperate, wild determination as he reached out through the dark void. Just a normal life like that. With a heavy, painful thud, Zeon crashed face first onto the solid ground. The wind was completely knocked out of him. Slowly, agonizingly, he pushed himself up, clutching his throbbing head. Oh, my head. He groaned, wiping the dirt from his face. What the? Why is it so darn hot and stuffy? He pressed his hand against the crumbly, dark soil. It broke apart instantly. Is this ash? He slowly raised his head, sweat pouring down his face as a blistering, unnatural heat washed over him. A look of sheer dread washed over his face. Ah, no sens. He muttered. Right. If I fell into a portal, that means... The view expanded, revealing a towering, volcanic landscape with rivers of molten lava and jagged, fiery peaks. Zeon realized the horrific truth. I am inside a dungeon. Zeon was on his hands and knees, staring into the swirling abyss. He panted heavily, barely able to process the scorching heat. He examined his hand with a sharp wince, watching the smoke curl from his skin with a quiet sizzle. The ground was literal fire. He hopped back with a frantic yelp, shouting, Ah, hot. Are you kidding me? Reality was setting in fast. He wiped the sweat from his brow, muttering, Darn. So, it wasn't a dream. Even in Neo Soul, dungeons are something you prep for hard. He examined the grime, coating his palm. So, this is volcanic ash, huh? He observed, feeling the gritty texture. Feels like burning, twitching sand. If I don't get out fast, it's gonna fry my lungs. With a tight tug, he secured his mask over his face, preparing for the worst. His mind raced for a solution. He reasoned aloud. Okay, if there's an entrance to this dungeon, then there's got to be an exit too. He looked out across the blistering landscape, spotting a towering peak of jagged rocks and flowing magma. That peak over there, he declared. Now, this is where it gets interesting. He narrowed his eyes, calculating the risk. If I just stand around, the heat and ash will end me anyway. With no beast in sight, this is my best window. His boots hit the ground with a heavy thud as he launched himself forward. I'll sprint straight there on the shortest route. He leaped boldly across a river of fire, declaring, Yeah, I'm Zeon, a guy who doesn't know how to give up. He slammed into the ground on the other side, skidding against the harsh terrain. Oh, that was way too close, he gasped. But then his grip gave out with a sudden slide. Curses, he yelled, feeling the terrifying pull of gravity. Desperation seized him as he reached out frantically. NGHHH. Please, please, please. With a sharp slam, his hand caught the jagged edge just in time, leaving him dangling over the blazing inferno. Straining every muscle, he hauled himself up on his solid ground. Grah, stupid lava like this. Doesn't scare me. Not one bit, he yelled defiantly. He collapsed on the sweltering rock, gasping heavily for air as the adrenaline slowly ebbed. His fist clenched tightly against the scorched earth, trembling with residual fear and rising anger. The memory of how he got here fueled his rage. He screamed into the burning sky. Yeah, Park Manhwa, you absolute monster. If I make it out of here, you will face justice. He quickly realized his mistake as the hot air scorched his throat. Great, yelling just makes it even hotter, darn it. He sighed, turning his rage mode off. Pushing himself up, determination burned brighter than the lava around him. He thought, I will survive this. I'll claw and scratch my way through. I'll get back no matter what. He stared ahead, mapping the treacherous jumps. 4 more times. If I clear it 4 more times. He calculated, steeling his nerves for the dangerous path. Facing the massive slope of fire, he promised himself, I'll make it. He tugged at his collar, feeling the intense pressure. Don't stop. Move first, think later. He took off, running, his body a blur of motion against the red glow. My life, in a hellhole like this, will never, ever, he roared, refusing to let the dungeon claim him. He launched himself into the air, reaching forward with everything he had. Grind to a halt. But here's the catch. Right as he soared through the air, the fiery jaws of a massive lava worm erupted from the molten river below, waiting to swallow him whole. The monstrous creature surged upwards with a deafening roar, shaking the very cavern. Lava cascaded like a deadly waterfall as the beast breached the surface with a violent splash. Sizzling drops of molten rock rained down everywhere, melting whatever they touched. Zeon shielded himself, desperately using a scrap of material. He panted, Huh, how hot is this monster? It's melting volcanic ash. His muscles strained as he manipulated the harsh environment. I took a gamble, but I can control the ash too. That saved my life. But still, the sheer force of the beast's presence pushed him back, pinning him under a suffocating weight. NGH, he groaned. He lay in the dust, entirely overwhelmed. This is too much. It's way too hot. He wheezed. In this dungeon, The environment's nastier than the beast. Tears of heat formed in his eyes. The heat and ash feel like they've cooked the inside of my nose. I can't breathe. My head's going fuzzy. His vision began to darken as he collapsed on the scorching floor. He weakly wondered, am I really going to die here? Suddenly, his fingers twitched. He squeezed his hand into a tight, defiant fist. He pushed himself up, fighting the exhaustion. Not even a minute since I swore I'd live. And I've never even had a girlfriend. No way I'm dying like this. With a heavy stomp, his boots slammed into the ground, kicking up a cloud of debris. Dark magic swirled around his hands as he readied his stance. Lord of the Afterlife. Sorry, but take 100 crocs instead of me. The colossal beast roared back, opening a terrifying inferno of teeth and fire. Zeon unleashed a battle cry that echoed through the cavern. Ariawa! Just then, a mysterious voice cut through the chaos, casually observing. Now that's an interesting ability you've got there. Zeon froze, spinning around in utter confusion. He stuttered, asking who was talking, and wondered aloud if it was the Lord of the Afterlife. The unseen voice chuckled. Controlling sand, huh? Very interesting, very fun. Zeon's eyes widened in disbelief. Yeah, right? As if, high above the lava beast, a figure plummeted gracefully through the hot air. It was Klexi, the old skewer vendor, grinning wildly. Zeon gasped in sheer shock. The old man descended like a meteor, a crazy, battle-hungry smile plastered on his face. Zeon could only stare, screaming, he's falling down. A tight grip on a weathered hilt. The tension in the air was palpable. With a fierce, terrifying grin, the old man swung his massive sword. Zeon could only watch, his eyes wide with absolute dread. He panicked, thinking, it is coming. A blinding beam of pure energy crashed from the heavens, splitting the very earth apart with a thunderous explosion. The sheer force of the impact sent shockwaves rippling outwards. Rocks and dust violently swirled through the air, completely shattering the ground beneath them. Zeon was thrown back, crying out in agony as the sheer force hit him. He stuttered. What just happened? His ears were ringing constantly. He thought that impact, the shockwave. I cannot hear anything. Did my eardrums burst? Slowly regaining his senses, Zeon realized, wait, that old man from before? No, before that, what about the beasts? Through the clearing smoke, Zeon saw the old man standing casually over the colossal, smoldering remains of the creature. He stared in total disbelief. They were gone. Completely gone. Zeon touched the scorched earth, realizing, this is not on the level of just a strong awakened. He is on a whole different dimension entirely. The old man stood tall, his eyes glowing with a menacing red light. With a heavy thud, the old man took a step forward through the dancing flames. He locked his piercing gaze on his Zeon. You there? The old man's voice boomed through the clearing. What is your name? But here is the catch. He didn't wait for an answer. He started counting down. 3, 2. The old man's silhouette loomed terrifyingly in Zeon's trembling eye. 1. Incorrect, the old man declared, his massive shadow swallowing Zeon whole. Zeon thought, what is with this guy? The old man asked, hey, you're not going to answer? The old man sneered, asking himself, what is he saying? Cat got your tongue. He muttered, my ears are wrecked. I can barely hear this little punk. He raised his colossal sword with a swift motion. If you'll not answer, then, oh, I can hear again. A chilling smile crept across his weathered face. Perish. Zeon threw his hands up, shouting frantically, wait. Hold on. Even if you do not know who I am, at least spare my life. The old man lowered his blade slightly. Oh, so you are not mute after all, just foolish. Desperate, Zeon yelled out a fake name. J1. My name is J1. He gasped for air, his heart pounding out of his chest. The old man mocked him. J1? What a nonsense name. Zeon shot back, sweating profusely. Nonsense? Like yours is so great, old man. With a heavy crash, the old man slammed his sword into the ground, sending a brilliant wave of energy pulsing outward. Deoden, he announced proudly. My name is Deoden. Zeon, still shaking from the encounter, asked, what exactly are you doing right now? Zeon finally found his courage. What do you mean? Calling people idiots and threatening me like this? Why are you acting so hostile toward me? He continued, I do appreciate you saving me, but what did I even do wrong? Deoden cut him off sharply. Listen, idiot. Judging by the look of you, you got snagged by a noose, Deoden explained, casually taking a seat. Zeon rolled his eyes. Wow, way to completely ignore me. A noose? What is that? It is what happens when a dungeon's mana becomes oversaturated, Deoden explained calmly. To preserve itself, the dungeon opens another entrance and bleeds mana out through that tear. At the same time, Deoden continued, pointing into the dark abyss. It hooks any living creatures nearby and drags them in. That phenomenon is the noose. Deoden burst into a roaring laughter. Most people will never see one in their entire lives. You've got disgustingly bad luck, kid. Zeon muttered in frustration. Curse it. Part manho, that arrogance. Hey, idiot, Deoden called out. Zeon snapped back immediately. Stop calling me an idiot. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Deoden suddenly grabbed Zeon's face with his large hand. Sigh, I will show you why I'm calling you that. Focus your mana into your eyes and look, Zeon stuttered. What are you doing? Just shut up and do as I say. Daoden commanded with authority. Sharpen the purity of your mana. Do not look with your eyes, see with your mana. Feel the mana itself. Suddenly, with a sharp hiss, the invisible world revealed itself to Zeon. The gruesome, colossal remains of a massive creature came into focus. Zeon stuttered. What in the world is that? Daoden chuckled softly, finally seeing it, huh? It is a beast with a stealth ability, Daoden explained, looking at the burning carcass. The clueless prey never even realizes when it has been consumed before it falls. Prey just like you. Zeon stood completely frozen. He thought something like that was right in front of me, and I did not sense a thing. No presence, no wrongness at all. He realized the chilling truth. If this old man had not shown up back there, I really would have perished without ever knowing why. He swallowed hard, a cold sweat dripping down his pale face. I have survived twice now, because of him. Staring at the towering figure of Daoden, Zeon could not help but wonder, just how strong is this guy? Still in absolute awe, Zeon asked, Who are you really? Are you actually some lunatic freak? The old man smirked confidently. Daoden, you brat. Zeon yelled, demanding to know who the old man was to have such power, and where they even were. Klexi calmly replied that they were inside a dungeon, which was now his hunting ground too. Zeon was confused, but the old man confirmed it. With a wide, unhinged grin, Klexi told Zeon to see for himself. The old man hoisted his massive, intricately carved weapon, uttering a single, mysterious command. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion of dark energy erupted, shaking the very ground beneath them. Zeon cried out in agony, tightly covering his ears as the deafening sound echoed through the cavern. Terrified and completely overwhelmed, Zeon wondered just what the old man had done. Out of nowhere, terrifying birds made of pure fire swarmed the area. Zeon screamed, asking what was happening. Standing amidst the roaring flames, Klexi shouted at Zeon, calling him an idiot. Swinging his weapon with terrifying force, the old man challenged on to survive on his own, if he was worth anything at all. As a fiery raven swooped down to attack, Zeon barely dodged, thinking to himself that the old man was absolutely crazy. With a sharp hiss, another brutal strike narrowly missed Zeon's face. He scrambled backward, his boots skidding across the fiery, scorched earth. The blazing beasts were relentless, bounding all over the place with impossible speed. Zeon cursed his luck, frustrated that he couldn't run away, and furious at the audacity of them only targeting his left side. A dark tendril lashed out, wrapping around his arm with a painful grip. The blazing ravens dive-bombed him over and over, turning the battlefield into a nightmare. Zeon gritted his teeth, dodging beams of searing light as he scrambled for survival. Sweat dripped down his face as panic set in. He realized he couldn't track them with his sand, or even with his own eyes. Facing this disaster, Zeon braced himself. He knew that if this kept up, his journey would be completely over. In the distance, Klexi was single-handedly taking on the chaos. Zeon realized that the old man had already saved his life twice. He thought, if I fall like this, I really am a hopeless case. Looking completely shell-shocked, Zeon stuttered, asking what that was. But Klexi just shouted back, asking why he wasn't answering. Pointing to his ear, Klexi complained that his hearing was fried and he couldn't make out a thing. Zeon thought to himself about the old man's absolute arrogance. Staring at a pool of dark fluid on the ground, Zeon knew he had to think fast. He desperately needed a way to see an enemy his eyes couldn't follow. Crossing his arms to block a heavy blow, a crimson mist filled the air. A voice echoed, calling him a hopeless idiot. The voice commanded him to focus mana into his eyes, to stare, and to raise the purity of his energy. Dark fluid leaked like tears as Zeon's eye glowed with brilliant golden light. He was told not to look with his eyes, but to feel the mana instead. A terrifying shadow bird charged right at him. A colossal pillar of fire erupted from the ground, nearly consuming him. But here's the catch. Zeon's expression hardened. He began to feel the beast's mana, no longer relying on his physical sight. In the darkness, glowing red veins outlined the soaring beasts. He realized that when the mana closed in, he just had to strike from the shortest distance. With a swift, decisive motion, Zeon countered a diving raven. He couldn't believe it. Had the old man planned this? He sliced through the fiery beast in a single, devastating strike. He wondered if the old man had seen this coming from the very start. Turning around, Zeon was left absolutely speechless. Klexi was facing off against a monstrous, blazing crocodile beast. Zeon yelled, demanding to know just what the old man was. Leaping through the air with a manic laugh, Klexi shouted that this was finally getting fun. He hadn't felt this fired up in ages. With a colossal swing, Klexi unleashed a beam of destructive force that shattered the earth and sent flames roaring into the sky. Eyes glowing with battle-crazed excitement, the old man prepared for another strike, hungry for more. Standing on the edge of a massive fiery chasm he had just created, Klexi challenged the giant beasts, telling them all to come at him. With a heavy thud, A massive chunk of armor and rock crumbles to the dusty ground. Standing before the colossal, defeated creature, Klexi barely breaks a sweat, his sword drawn and ready. He lets out a disappointed sigh and says, "What a shame." Dragging his giant blade through the dirt, Klexi grumbles, clearly unsatisfied with the battle. He complains loudly. "Such a waste. I was just getting warmed up. Why are there so few beasts in dungeons these days? Back in my day, TSK." Zeon watches the old man, utterly bewildered. He mutters, "Seriously, he's insane. I actually feel sorry for the monsters." Standing in a massive crater surrounded by a mountain of defeated creatures, Zeon shakes his head. He wiped out an entire pack of large-class beasts. "I'm so stunned, I don't even know what to say." A relieved, breathless laugh escapes Zeon's lips. "Still, it looks like there aren't any monsters left, right? Right?" But his nervous smile quickly fades as an ominous shadow looms over him. He groans, "Of course, just my terrible luck." Suddenly, a thunderous explosion of fire and molten rock erupts from the ground right behind them. Zeon is violently thrown forward by the massive shockwave, crying out, "Irk!" He crashes hard into the dirt, groaning in pain. "G.U.H. Heard." Coughing through the thick smoke, Zeon asks, "What on earth was that?" "What now?" Klexi calmly looks over his shoulder and replies, "That was the boss's roar." Zeon pauses, his eyes widening as a gigantic, scaled foot steps heavily into the magma. "Every dungeon has a final boss that sits at the heart of the zone," Klexi explains. "And that's why I came in here." A towering, monstrous silhouette engulfed in bright blue flames rises from the infernal depths. He stammers in absolute terror. "The boss. That thing." Klexi just flashes a wicked, adrenaline-fueled grin, completely unfazed. Finally decided to show up. The massive creature fully reveals itself, its wings spreading wide as magma drips from its scales. Klexi shouts, "Crimson Drake!" Zeon looks up, horrified. "Crimson Drake? You're telling me that isn't a dragon?" Klexi chuckles. "Sadly, no. Still, it's at least B rank." A blinding, icy blue light begins to gather in the dense cavern air. "Minimum B rank," Zeon observes. "In that case, that's..." The Crimson Drake roars as the energy violently swirls around it. Zeon finishes his thought. "A force field." Klexi casually places a hand on Zeon's head. "Oh, you know about force fields, even as a little idiot?" Zeon replies, "Only from what I've heard. They say beasts B rank and above each have their own unique traits, like humans." The blue energy sharpens into lethal forms. "Just like awakened ranks have different badge colors," Zeon continues. Klexi adds, "A red field means a martial-type trait, and a beast with a blue field like that one." Klexi points as the energy solidifies with a sharp hiss. A gigantic, jagged spear of solid ice forms directly above the lava, aimed right at them. Zeon screams in sheer panic. "Is a magic type. Curse it, that's absolutely absurd." The massive ice spear plummets down with devastating speed, crashing straight into Klexi's raised blade. Zeon looks up at the towering monolith of ice, completely overshadowed by its sheer size. His mind races, overwhelmed by the impossible scale of the battle. "It's pointless," he thinks. "All the common sense and experience I have, in front of that old man. It's all pointless." Now, this is where it gets interesting. The Drake lunges forward with incredible velocity. Its massive claws reach out, ready to crush them both into fine dust. But Klexi meets the attack head-on, his sword violently clashing against the beast's dark, heavy scales. The impact sends brutal shockwaves through the cavern as Klexi holds his ground, his eyes glowing with power. The Drake opens its jaws wide, charging a blinding sphere of magical energy right in Klexi's face. Unfazed, Klexi flashes a terrifying, razor-toothed smile. He is entirely in his element. With a powerful, sweeping swing, Klexi parries the beast's direct assault, shattering the energy blast. Klexi's eyes burn with manic excitement. He laughs wildly. "Ha ha! Does it hurt?" He tightens his iron grip on his hilt. "Drake, don't worry. That pain." He leaps straight toward the monster, shouting, "I'll personally put an end to it. Today is the day you meet your end." Caught in the terrifying crossfire, Zeon screams with tears welling in his eyes. "Curse it! I am the one meeting my end today." He turns and sprints for his life through a dangerous shower of shattered ice. These lunatics! Whatever it is, use your words, not whatever this is. A massive shockwave hits him from behind, sending him tumbling. GHK! Pushed to the absolute brink, Zeon screams, "Grah!" He desperately digs his boots into the fractured ground to stop himself. "Seriously, can't you fight a little farther away? How is the shockwave alone doing this much?" He glances over his shoulder, his eyes wide in panic as a massive chunk of debris flies straight toward his head. Completely oblivious to Zeon's desperate struggle, Klexi laughs hysterically. "Ha ha ha! This is great! This is great!" The Drake thrashes wildly in the flames. Zeon shouts from the distance. "Doesn't it feel like we're at an amusement park?" "Oh, Crimson Drake!" A colossal pillar of fire erupts, tearing the very ground apart in a spectacular display of destruction. Zeon struggles to maintain his balance on a rapidly breaking rock formation. The ground directly beneath him shatters completely, sending jagged spikes of earth flying. He realizes he has nowhere left to step. He grits his teeth, whispering, "Oh no." But here's the catch. Gravity takes over, and Zeon loses his footing entirely. He falls backward off the crumbling cliff edge, his arms flailing wildly in the empty air. Suspended in the heat of the moment, he plummets dangerously toward the searing magma below. Time seems to slow down as he stares up at the catastrophic battle raging above him. His eye widens in absolute, paralyzing terror as the heat rises to meet him. In a breathtaking, cinematic shot, Zeon freefalls toward the fiery abyss, while Clexi and the Crimson Drake continue their legendary clash high above. The old man laughed like a sheer maniac. He taunted the massive beast, shouting, "Ha ha! Is that all you've got, Drake?" With a heavy thud, Clexi slammed his weapon down. He mocked the creature without mercy. "Some dungeon boss you are, groveling with your head down like that. The title of boss is weeping for you." A thunderous explosion erupted from the creature's jaw as blinding blue energy clashed against the old man's relentless assault. Clexi's eyes glowed with pure, unadulterated thrill. He smirked. Still, you are a boss, so you can at least do that much, huh?" Suddenly, a bright pillar of energy shot upward with a sharp, crackling hiss. The air trembled under the sheer force of the shockwave, turning the cavern into a chaotic storm of raw power. The massive drake exhaled a thick cloud of smoke, completely battered and desperate to catch its breath. Then, a chilling voice echoed from the heavy shadows. "You looking for me?" The beast snapped its heavy head up, its glowing eyes wide with sudden, unmistakable terror. Clexi descended from above like a falling meteor, bringing his massive blade down in a devastating strike that instantly ended the threat. The drake let out a final, silent roar as the radiant life force began to fade from its glowing maw. Pinning the defeated beast down, Clexi muttered darkly, "I've spent years tearing through this desert just to get my hands on you." He gripped his colossal sword tight. "So I could use your heart to abandon Crayon." His gaze was cold, completely unyielding. "This is the end." The dark metal of his sword began to hum, glowing with an intense, icy light as it absorbed the energy. With a sudden, violent collapse of power, the drake imploded, leaving behind a fading mist where a terror once stood. The old man's massive sword pulsed violently, radiating a searing, crimson heat. The blade practically breathed, emitting sharp, crackling sounds as it secured its newly claimed power. Clexi stood victorious amidst the settling dust, the fierce red glow illuminating his deeply scarred face. With a soft shattering sound, the heavy outer shell of the weapon broke away, revealing a brilliant, energized blade underneath. He gripped the newly transformed hilt, fully taking in the surge of fresh power. A wicked grin spread across his face. You've gotten stronger, Gray Zone." Zon, watching from the sidelines in disbelief, couldn't help but deadpan. "Talking to your sword. You really are a crazy old man, huh?" Peeking safely over a rock, Zeon added, "But you still took down a drake in the end. You're insanely strong, you crazy old geezer." Clexi glanced over, mildly surprised. "Oh, idiot. You actually managed not to die." Zeon rested his head on his bandaged arms, sweating profusely. "Yeah, well, I almost died, but..." Suddenly, the ground beneath Zeon gave way, violently launching him into the fiery air. Zeon's eyes bulged in sheer, breathless panic. He screamed, clutching his face tightly as the very fabric of the dungeon twisted and tore around him. He plummeted through the bright void, the fierce wind roaring in his ears. With a harsh thud, he crashed onto the hard earth, a massive cloud of dust exploding outward. Lying completely flat on his back, Zeon gasped for air. I'm still alive, somehow. I'm really stubborn. He sat up, glaring at Clexi. "Some lunatic kept blasting me with shockwaves, so I must have decent reflexes. That's probably what saved me." Clexi just smirked. Not bad for an idiot." Without any warning, Clexi hauled Zeon right up by his shirt. "The boss is dead, so the dungeon will collapse soon. We'd better hurry out." Zeon dangled helplessly from the old man's grip. "Then why are you grabbing me?" Clexi threw his head back and let out a booming, joyful laugh. He literally tossed Zeon straight into a swirling dark portal. "See, you idiot!" Clexi shouted cheerfully. Zeon flailed wildly in the dark drop. He screamed, "Hey, you lunatic! You're worse than Park Manhwa, you monster!" Zeon tumbled clumsily out of the sky, bracing for a rough impact over an endless sea of sand. He hit the dunes with a soft, sliding sound as the portal hissed shut behind him. He stuttered in pure shock, demanding, "What on earth is this place now?" Clexi strolled out casually from the rift. "What do you mean, what is it?" "This is outside the dungeon, where a rift opened when it started collapsing." Zeon grumbled, "Then why not just walk out like a normal person, Dash?" But Clexi cut him off sharply. "Listen up, idiot." Clexi towered over the boy, looking dead serious. "I need that sand-controlling ability of yours. But as weak as you are now, you're useless. So I'll give you a choice. He pointed firmly toward the horizon. Head that way, and you'll end up back in Neo Soul. Go back and live the same life you had before. Then, he pointed a thumb at himself. Or follow me, and become a better idiot than you are now. Zeon sat in the sand, completely bewildered by the sudden offer. He stuttered slightly, asking, "What are you even talking about all of a sudden? If I follow you, for how long?" Klexi's expression was unreadable. No idea. Could be months, years, maybe decades, and you still won't know. Zeon stared up at him, the massive weight of the decision sinking in. But here's the catch. Klexi laid it all out. Will you go back to the familiar, comfortable life you know, or throw yourself into a gamble where there's a 99% chance you don't make out alive? The old man's piercing red eyes locked onto Zeon's. The tension in the air was palpable as Klexi demanded, "Well, choose." Zeon flashed a terrifying grin, sweat dripping down his face. He growled, "Don't make me laugh." Pointing an accusatory finger, he shouted, "Hey, old man, are you actually insane?" The frustration completely boiled over. "Give up my house, my bed, and a roof over my head, just to march through this burning desert with you?" Klexi didn't flinch, his expression dead serious. "Yes," he replied calmly. "That's exactly what I'm saying." Zeon turned his back, dismissing the entire idea. "Then there's nothing left to talk about," he scoffed. "But here's the catch." Zeon paused, casting a sharp glance over his shoulder. "I'm going with you." His eyes darkened with sheer determination. "I'm the type who has to pay people back when they piss me off, and I'm still too weak to get my revenge." A fierce, predatory smile spread across Zeon's face. "You're on that list too, old man." He stepped closer, staring Klexi down. "You're stronger than anyone I've ever seen, and I've got a feeling I'll never meet anyone stronger." Klexi let out a boisterous laugh, amused by the sheer audacity of this kid. "So I'm sure of it. Sure you're not just." Zeon clenched his fist, sand swirling around him. "Sure you're going to die? If I follow you." The old man's grin widened, revealing a row of sharp teeth. "That conviction, one day, you'll regret it." Turning on his heel, Klexi began to march into the wasteland. "Follow me, idiot. We've got a long road ahead." Zeon hurried after him, barking, "Stop calling me an idiot." High above, the scorching sun beat down on the unforgiving desert, turning the atmosphere into a suffocating oven. Exhausted, Zeon panted heavily. He stammered out, and at least slowed down a little. Desperately reaching out toward Klexi's retreating back, Zeon pleaded, "Hey, old man, we've been walking for 6 hours already. Can we please take a break?" Klexi just kept walking, his heavy sword strapped to his back, completely ignoring the complaining boy. Pushed to his limit, Zeon clutched his head and screamed at the sky. "Come on, say something. You're worse than a moody teenage girl. What is with those mood swings?" Sweat poured into his wide, desperate eyes. "It's so hot," he muttered. 40 degrees? No, more like 50. Every step felt like wading through thick mud. This damned sand makes every step a chore. At this rate, I'm guaranteed heat stroke or dehydration. Klexi finally glanced back, shaking his head. "You really are hopeless. You're not even using 1% of what you've got." Zeon paused, completely baffled. "What's that supposed to mean?" The old man sighed. "You can control sand, and you're whining about how hard it is to walk on sand. Pathetic." That struck a nerve. Zeon threw his hands up and yelled, "Easy for you to say. I only awakened the other day." Klexi glared at him with piercing red eyes. "And what of it? I'm just an F rank." Zeon protested, feeling hopelessly outmatched. "Not some high-rank awakened fossil like you." That was the wrong thing to say. Klexi grabbed Zeon by the collar, absolutely furious. "Quit spouting idiot nonsense. Who cares if you're F rank or S rank?" Zeon stared up in shock. Klexi roared, "You think anyone pops out of the womb as an S rank? Even if someone does, that just means they were born blessed." The old man's words hit like a physical blow. "So what? Because you weren't blessed, you'll just give up and drift through life. To everyone else, you already look plenty blessed." Klexi released his grip, leaving Zeon standing there in stunned silence. "Blessed," Zeon thought, the word echoing in his mind. Tapping Zeon's forehead, Klexi scoffed. "So stop whining and start thinking about how to use your power. What good are 4 working limbs when the brain attached to them is dead weight?" Zeon's eyes widened, realization slowly dawning on him. "It's your ability," Klexi reminded him gently. "Now, this is where it gets interesting." Klexi rested a heavy hand on the boy's shoulder. "Obviously, you're the one who knows it best. You're the only one who can figure out how to break past your limits and how to use it." Moved by the sudden wisdom, Zeon mumbled, "Old man." But Klexi wasn't one for tender moments. He threw a quick, sharp jab to Zeon's chest. "Got it, idiot," Klexi yelled. "If you waste it, just assume you're dead." Zeon clutched his chest, shouting back, "Okay, I get it." Zeon looked down at his heavy boots, deeply buried in the shifting dunes. He closed his eyes and focused. Swirling columns of sand rose up around him, answering his direct call. "Just ease up a little," he told himself. "I can control sand in about a 5-meter radius." He took a confident step forward. "A bit short, but it's enough. If I fix that, I can cut down on stamina loss." Gathering his mana, a bright aura enveloped his boot. if I compress the sand and harden it. He bounded forward, gliding effortlessly over the dunes. Nice, that works. My feet don't sink, and walking feels super easy. But the victory was short-lived. Zeon slumped over exhausted. But it drains mana like crazy. Long term, that's a losing game. Refusing to give up, he tried another tactic. Or I could focus mana into both legs. Oh, that definitely makes walking easier. He mumbled to himself as he experimented. If I tweak it here like this, but then I'm not really using my ability, am I? Okay, next. Watching him, Clexi thought. In the end, it's simple. Zeon tripped and took a massive tumble into the sand. Clexi smiled to himself. You just keep trying and don't give up. That's the privilege of the young. The old man turned and kept walking, deeply impressed. He's still F rank for now, but in terms of power and mana control, he's already around E to D rank. Suddenly, a burst of energy lit up behind him. Oh, it works. Zeon cheered. With that kid, Clexi thought, I'm sure he'll. Zeon rushed up beside Clexi, grinning from ear to ear. Old man, look at this. I'm only controlling the sand right under my feet, and walking's a breeze now. Confidence turned into cockiness in a heartbeat. He stuck out his tongue and mocked. Haha, but you can't do this, old man. I'm walking comfy as hell now, and you're still slow as a heavy fist came crashing down, delivering a swift blow straight to Zeon's head. Zeon hit the dirt, completely knocked out. Clexi dusted off his hands. Ugh, quit yapping and tagging along. Don't waste your energy on useless nonsense. You'll drop dead. Clexi sighed, turning back to the horizon. We're short on time, so hurry, idiot. He looked down, panicking as he realized Zeon wasn't moving. Hey, idiot, breathe, just breathe. Zeon slowly blinked, his vision blurry as he lay on the dirt. He stuttered, asking where he was, his head throbbing with confusion. Clexi, the old man, sat nearby, gnawing on a piece of dried food. You are finally up, you useless brat, Clexi grumbled. I've got better things to do, and here I am wasting time on you. Zeon pushed himself up, wiping a strange, foul-smelling salve off his skin. I do not remember asking you to save me, Zeon muttered, glaring at the old man. And whatever you smeared on my wound, that is filth, not medicine. Clexi simply tossed a piece of tough, leathery jerky on the ground in front of Zeon. Leaning back, Clexi looked at the boy with a hard, weary stare. Eat and listen. This is about when I was like you. The old man's voice dropped, carrying the weight of countless years. Back then, even if you were weak, even worse than others, you could still survive. People even respected those who protected the weak. Can you imagine that? Zeon lay quietly, listening to the old man's raspy voice. But as you know, Clexi continued, the world changed. To you, this might be normal, but I have never gotten used to it. Standing up, Clexi cast a long shadow over the boy. If you have made up your mind to fall, lie there and rot. If not, get up on your own, with your own strength, idiot. Zeon swallowed hard, feeling the dried dust in his throat. Yeah, he sighed, sitting up. I get it. He stared blankly at the sky, processing the old man's heavy words. Looking over at Clexi, Zeon thought to himself, I figured, but he really has lived a long time. How many years? How many memories are packed in there? The old man was still chewing the exact same piece of jerky. Is he even chewing? Zeon wondered, or just sucking it down? He wiped his mouth, suddenly understanding the survival tactic. In a desert with no water, that is probably the right way. Would have been nice if he told me earlier. Zeon gazed thoughtfully into the distance. It feels less like he is handing me a fish, and more like he is teaching me how to catch one. He smirked slightly, trudging through the sand behind the old man. Not that I have ever even seen a fish. Later that night, the freezing cold desert air set in. Old man, Zeon shivered. Give me one more piece. Clexi snapped back. Shut your mouth. Zeon breathed heavily into his cupped hands, trembling uncontrollably in the frigid darkness. He groaned, hugging his knees tightly. I have learned the hard way. Desert nights are freezing. Clexi, meanwhile, was calmly doing some stretches. Zeon glared at him in frustration. And that crazy old man. He spent all night talking to himself, or his sword, and I barely got any sleep. Zeon thought, he is seriously nuts, is he not? Morning finally arrived, but the thirst was unbearable. Ugh, I'm so thirsty, Zeon croaked. Is there not any water around here? Suddenly, Clexi wrung out his heavy cloak, catching the morning dew straight into his mouth. Zeon stared in disbelief, his jaw dropping. Again, keeping it all to yourself, huh? He quickly started licking the moisture off his own sleeves. So he squeezes the dew out of his clothes and drinks it. No wonder he sleeps with all his clothes spread out like that. Zeon thought, licking his arm frantically. Just you wait, you crazy old geezer. I swear I'm going to get my revenge on you someday. You arrogance. Clexi glanced over. Hey, fool. Zeon snapped, throwing his hands up. It is not fool. It is idiot. Thank you very much. Clexi ignored the outburst. Yeah, idiot. You starting to feel it? Zeon paused, his eyes widening in confusion. Feel what? He looked down as the ground beneath him began to subtly tremble. That vibration. The rumbling grew louder, shaking the loose dirt. And it is not just one or two. From the shadows, massive creatures emerged, surrounding them completely. Big-horned hyenas, Clexi noted calmly. They are usually nocturnal. Looks like we ran into them at dawn. The beasts snarled, their red eyes glowing with hunger. Clexi looked at Zahn, a teasing smirk on his face. Think an idiot like you can survive on your own? Or do you need my help again? With a terrifying roar, the giant hyenas lunged forward, kicking up a storm of dust. Zeon chuckled nervously but stood his ground, pointing a confident thumb at his chest. You would really help me? He said, his voice rising. I do not need it. He threw his arms wide, welcoming the challenge head-on. I will handle this myself. I will survive. Gathering his mana, he gritted his teeth as golden sand began to swirl violently around his fingertips. Massive pillars of hardened sand erupted from the earth, launching the beasts into the air with a heavy crash. His eyes darted across the battlefield, glowing with intense focus as he tracked every movement. More sand spikes shot up, piercing the ground and scattering the relentless pack. Zeon shouted, his frustration mounting. You insane mutts. Damn it, how many of you are there? He clutched his chest, panting heavily. At this rate, I will run out of mana long before they tear me apart. I need a plan, think. He stared down the endless sea of glowing red eyes. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Raw power is not the answer, he realized. I need efficiency and better mana control. A small vortex of sand spun in his palm as he focused his mind. How do I fight using less mana? Think. Suddenly, a massive shadow loomed over him, breaking his concentration. A hyena snapped its jaws onto his arm. Zeon yelled, swatting away with a powerful blow. Hey, you audacity. I'm trying to think here. You sneaky little mutt. He clutched his injured arm, wincing in pain. That beast just left a deep mark in my arm. Guess I've got a new air vent. Dark fluid dripped steadily onto the dry sand. He stared at the deep puncture wound. Vent? The pack charged again, closing the distance in a heartbeat. Zeon stood perfectly still as the monsters lunged from all sides. But here is the catch. He finally figured it out. A dangerous smile crept across his face. Right, a hole. I just need to make holes. He extended his hand, firing condensed, high-speed sand bullets that pierced straight through the beasts, instantly ending the threat. Like this. Zeon swung his weapon with grim determination, shouting out, whether their heads explode or just get a hole in them, they end up just as dead. Surrounded by ravenous, dog-like beasts, he focused his mind. He knew the harsh truth of this world, thinking to himself, in battle, mana is directly linked to your life. If you panic and waste mana, you are just speeding up your own demise. He moved with fluid, calculated strikes. The minimum lethality for the opponent, the minimum mana used. It is about fighting cost-effectively, he reasoned. Glancing over at his elderly companion fighting nearby, Zeon let out a confident laugh. Even Grandpa is doing it one by one, slowly. Meanwhile, a massive beast clamped its jaws down hard on Clexi's arm. But the old man barely flinched, chuckling darkly. Haha, what are you doing? That just tickles. The creature's eyes glowed with feral rage as it tightened its grip. Clexi snarled, calling the beast a damn mutt. Drawing his massive blade with a sharp hiss, the old man's aura shifted. Cannot let a dog that bites people live, now, can I? All of you. Right here, right now. A terrifying, unhinged grin spread across Clexi's weathered face. Seeing that familiar, terrifying look, Zeon panicked, crying out for him to wait, realizing the old man was about to unleash his devastating power again. With a booming roar that shook the very earth, Clexi declared, "It is a massacre." A thunderous explosion erupted, tearing the ground apart with blinding force. The sheer impact sent the beasts and Zeon flying through the air. Zeon let out a startled yell as he tumbled away. Landing hard, a cold sweat broke out on Zeon's face. He gasped, "That crazy old man, seriously? There are people nearby." As the dust cleared, a massive, terrifying crater was left etched into the barren wasteland. Staring at the unbelievable destruction, Zeon questioned reality itself. Is he even human? Is that even possible without using a skill? A low bark interrupted his thoughts, reminding him of his own precarious situation. Nonsense, he muttered nervously. I should probably keep a lower profile from now on. One wrong move, and I'm done for. The dust settled to show Clexi casually sitting atop a gigantic, downed alpha hyena. Geez, you're gonna burst my eardrums, Clexi complained. You're the alpha female, are you not? Making such a fuss for a leader. But the massive beast was not finished yet. It bared its fangs, crackling with intense, volatile lightning. Caught off guard, Clexi gritted his teeth as a shimmering barrier flared up. Is this a force field? He exclaimed. You scoundrel. You are B rank or higher. With a blinding flash, a colossal blast of electricity completely engulfed the old man. Zeon reached out in utter horror, screaming for his grandpa to look out. The intense energy surged violently around Clexi, striking him point blank. The air crackled with residual energy. Zeon stared blankly, barely able to process what had just happened. Out, he whispered. But to Zeon's absolute disbelief, Clexi sat there perfectly fine, stretching his neck. That is quite a tingle. Really works out the knots in my shoulders. A sinister shadow fell over the old man's glowing eyes. Well, now that the massage is over, with a single, earth-shattering punch, Clexi ended the threat completely. A dark mist filled the air, raining down heavily on Zeon. Covered in the aftermath, he clapped his hands together with a hollow laugh. All right, who am I to be worrying about anyone? It is better for my mental health to just ignore that monster. Wearing the beast's hollowed-out head like a bizarre trophy, Zeon trotted over. Grandpa, looks like we have finished them off. Are we heading out soon? Clexi glanced back, completely unimpressed. Oh, you're still alive, you fool. Clexi eyed Zeon's new headwear. Are you taking that with you? The horn of a great horned hyena is quite useful. It even has lightning properties, so it will make a fine weapon if it is refined well. Without warning, the old man tossed a heavy hunting knife through the air, simply ordering him to catch. Later, as they carved up their prize, Clexi offered a grim warning. A great horned hyena's muscle is highly toxic, so you will die if you eat it. But the flank meat is toxin-free. Zeon stared nervously, clearly disturbed by the visceral work. Clexi snapped at him. HM, what are you staring at? The sun is coming up soon. Move it, fool. Zeon jumped to attention, loudly confirming the order as the golden light of dawn began to wash over the jagged wasteland. Back on the move, Zeon happily chewed on a piece of dry jerky. This is great. I'm a bit thirsty, but I have got plenty of food, he mused. Looking down at his softly glowing boots, he added, and thanks to my new skill, sandstep, walking is a breeze. Feeling overly confident, Zeon leaned in to tease his mentor. Jealous, Grandpa. I hope you are not overexerting yourself at your age. Clexi swung a swift punch at the boy's head, but Zeon laughed playfully. Ducking smoothly under the heavy fist, Zeon mocked, dodged it this time. But here's the catch. Clexi effortlessly swept Zeon's legs, leaving him planted face first in the dirt. Clexi sighed, oh, what a nutcase. Here I'm walking my tail off, and he's acting all high and mighty just because he got some subpar skill. Spitting sand from his mouth, Zeon groaned. Come on, it was just a joke. I'm already dying of thirst, and then you shove my face in the sand. Suddenly, Zeon paused, sniffing the air. Hey, I'm talking to you. Where you look, wait this feeling. Moisture? He watched Clexi staring intensely at the horizon. Did I imagine it? Zeon thought. No, the fact that Grandpa is looking at the same spot means. Scrambling up the massive dune, his eyes went wide. Is it really there? Just beyond this. A shimmering light danced beautifully just over the crest of the endless golden sands. The two weary travelers peered over the edge, completely captivated by the miraculous sight. Pure, unadulterated joy erupted on Zeon's face. Whoa, it is actually there. The one I only heard rumors about. Forgetting all his exhaustion, Zeon sprinted down the hill toward the sparkling blue water, screaming with pure relief, an oasis. Throwing all caution to the wind, Zeon sprinted down the dune. He cheered, water, water. How many days has it been since we had water? Clexi watched him with a deep scowl, clicking his tongue in clear annoyance. Finally, Zeon cried out, rushing blindly toward the inviting pool. He dove straight in, a wide, content smile spreading across his face as the cool water rushed over his skin. Submerging himself completely, he let out a deeply satisfied sigh. It is soaking in. It is soaking in. He dragged his exhausted body through the shallows, overwhelmed by relief. He thought, in this unforgiving desert over 50 degrees, after days this coolness is seeping into my body. His blissful moment was suddenly cut short. I am so happy, he started, before his eyes widened in sheer confusion. A soft glow appeared in the dark depths below him. Zeon murmured, what is that like? It is dazzling and warm. His eyelids grew incredibly heavy, a strange, hypnotic trance washing over him. I feel sleepy, he whispered. A booming voice shattered his daze. Get a grip. Clexi roared. You foolish boy. The old warrior was already charging toward the water, his cape billowing wildly behind him. He closed the distance in a flash, seeing Zeon dangerously entranced by the eerie underwater light. Just beneath the surface, a massive, nightmarish creature with row upon row of razor-sharp teeth lunged upward. With a desperate, heavy tug, Clexi grabbed Zeon's collar, yanking him back just in the nick of time. A colossal beast erupted from the water, towering over them with a thunderous splash. Without missing a single beat, Clexi leaped high into the air, drawing his massive greatsword as Zeon tumbled safely onto the sand. The old man tightened his iron grip on the hilt, raw power surging through his arms. With a single, devastating swing, he cleaved through the giant monster, sending a massive shockwave of water crashing against the shore. Drenched and trembling, Zeon stared in absolute awe. Wow, this is insane, he muttered. So that is the thing I only heard about. As the displaced water rained down around them, Clexi stood victorious over the fallen beast. A mirage, the old man stated coldly. Clexi pointed his massive blade. It is a sand maw. It lures prey with the light on its forehead and then devours it. Thon, still in shock, simply replied, ah. Out of nowhere, Klexi spun around and delivered a swift, heavy punch to Zeon's face. Zeon clutched his bruised cheek as Klexi yelled, "What on earth have you been doing with everything I taught you, you fool? Just because you adapted a little, you think you are something now?" The old man's rage was relentless. "Fools like you fall first in this wasteland. Do you understand me?" Finally, Klexi let out a long, exhausted sigh. "Huh," Zeon replied meekly, "yes." Turning his attention back to the defeated monster, Klexi ordered, "Skin it." Confused, Zeon echoed, "Skin it?" "The Sanma is a C-rank monster," Klexi explained calmly. "Its belly skin is soft and elastic, perfect for making robes. So cut it and make a robe." Missing the point entirely, Zeon asked, "Do you need a robe?" Klexi facepalmed, groaning in absolute frustration. "Not mine. Make yours, you hopeless fool." Klexi erupted once more. "Why does your intelligence keep dropping? There has to be a reason. Did someone cast petrification on your left brain and corrosion magic on your right?" With dark bruises forming on his cheek, Zeon forced an awkward, apologetic smile. "I am sorry," he said softly. And he looked up at the massive, grotesque carcass. "It has changed a lot, but the Sanma closely resembles fish that once lived on Earth. You have probably never seen a fish before, so take a good look or do not," Klexi muttered dismissively. Zeon stared blankly. "That is a fish?" His eyes locked onto the terrifying creature. "It is my first time seeing one." He swallowed hard. Fish are scary. Determined to complete his task, Zeon drove his knife into the thick hide with a heavy, squelching thud. But his clumsy attempts only made a mess. "Want me to scratch the fish's back?" he joked nervously. "It would feel so good. Even a dead fish would come back to life, right?" Annoyed, Klexi shouted, "Hey, stop it. I will handle it myself." But here is the catch. Zeon wanted to prove himself. Stepping back, he muttered, "Tougher than I thought." In that case, he raised his knife, a glowing energy beginning to swirl around the blade. "Focus. Focus," he told himself. "Infuse mana into the blade to increase cutting power." He reasoned, watching the metal gleam. His confidence grew. Shave the fin thinly to use as a needle. Pulling a thin strip from a beast, he analyzed his makeshift tools. "And if I use the tendon from the flesh as thread?" A brilliant spark of inspiration lit up his eyes. This is... But reality was harsh. A few moments later, Zeon was on his knees before a mangled, useless pile of rags. Watching from the shade, Klexi stuttered in sheer disbelief. "You are turning a fish into garbage." Defeated, Zeon hung his head and muttered, "I am doomed." The old man, Klexi, lay there looking entirely drained, yet a stubborn grin tugged at his weathered face. He muttered, "TC, I've still got plenty of materials left. One more try." Night slowly fell over the desolate ruins, casting a quiet, eerie stillness across the vast sandy wasteland. Meanwhile, Zeon was busy making a few adjustments of his own. With a triumphant shout, he yelled, "There we go. It's finally done." After countless failures, Zeon had finally managed to craft himself a sturdy black robe. Klexi, holding a massive, fleshy blob in the background, scoffed at the boy. "After 8 failures at last. This is good enough to sell. Welcome to Zeon Boutique." Startled, Zeon spun around and clutched his new robe defensively. Klexi stared at him flatly and said, "Hey, idiot." Panic setting in, Zeon stammered, frantically declining. No way, you can't have it. I'm not giving you my robe." But Klexi wasn't interested in the makeshift fashion. He stepped forward, holding out a dripping, gelatinous mass. "Quit babbling," Klexi ordered. "Eat this." Zeon stared at the squelching object in absolute horror. That's..." Klexi interrupted, "a Sanma's gallbladder. It's a rare medicine. Don't leave even a single gram. Eat every last bit." To drive the point home, Klexi shoved the foul-looking organ aggressively toward him, his face twisting into a menacing grin. "If you don't, you perish." Resigned to his fate, Zeon reached out as the heavy mass flopped into his arms with a wet thud. "Take it already. You're getting sweat on it," Klexi grumbled. "Then just drop it on me." A heavy bead of sweat rolled down Zeon's cheek as he stared intensely at the monstrosity in his trembling hands. With a furious shout, he tore into the gelatinous lump. "Fine. Darn it, they call it medicine. So whatever. It looks nasty, but it's better than getting beaten to a pulp." He took a massive bite, his cheeks puffing out comically as he chewed the strange substance. He looked around in confusion, expecting the worst. "Well," he mumbled. Surprisingly, it wasn't awful at all. Zeon tore into the organ like a starved animal. "It's like I'm eating clouds," he thought, amazed. "No matter how much I eat, I don't feel full." He shoved chunks in his mouth at lightning speed. Klexi watched the ravenous boy, entirely unimpressed. "At least that means you're shoveling it down fast." "Hey, idiot." Ignoring the boy's bizarre feast, Klexi sat down by a crackling campfire to roast a thick cut of meat. "Time to burn," he declared. But here's the catch. Before Zeon could take another bite, a searing light erupted from deep within his chest. He gasped, dropping the food. "What are you even?" Pure agony ripped through his veins. Smoke poured from his skin as he let out a guttural, desperate scream. He clutched his chest, watching in horror as it glowed like a superheated furnace. What the heck? My body, it's burning. No, this is way past just hot. The intense heat flared brilliantly against the dark. Zeon wheezed, my mana, it's completely going berserk. It hurts. It's like the sun is writhing around in my gut. If this keeps up, I'll really... As Zeon writhed on the ground, screaming into the night, Klexi simply sat by the fire, entirely unfazed. Endure it, idiot. Staring out at the dark, vast expanse of the desert, the old man mused poetically. Everything in this world is like an oasis. Sooner or later, it all rides the dunes and vanishes like it was never there. Strange, glowing liquid droplets swirled mysteriously in the shadows. Even there, the Sama is born again, and circles back once more. Klexi turned his gaze back to the agonizing boy. That's how life keeps turning. Zeon kicked the dirt in utter frustration, shouting, "Darn it, old man." Clawing at his own throat in a desperate panic, Zeon roared, "Stop getting all sentimental on me. Just save me first." Klexi just casually glanced back over his shoulder, offering absolutely no help whatsoever. Zeon's vision faded to black, his consciousness slipping away as he cursed into the void. "I'm gonna end you for this, old man." Klexi's voice echoed annoyingly in the darkness. "Quiet. I'm trying to sleep." Sometime later, under the bright, scorching daylight, Zeon's hand twitched in the warm sand. He groaned softly. Huh, where am I? Suddenly, Klexi's upside-down face appeared directly above his line of sight. "You awake, idiot?" Zeon shrieked, scrambling backward in a frantic panic. "You scared the life out of me. Don't just pop up like that." Catching his breath, Zeon knelt on the hot sand while Klexi smirked. "Sleep well, idiot?" Klexi asked. Zeon scowled, retorting sharply. "That wasn't sleep, that was me passing out." Klexi stood against a backdrop of brilliant golden clouds. "Yeah? Then how's your body?" Zeon paused, looking down at his own hands in pure disbelief. "My body? Well, kind of." He grabbed his shirt, feeling the rhythmic, steady beat of his heart. His eyes widened. "It doesn't hurt." A surge of powerful, vibrating energy wrapped around him like a cloak. Zeon marveled. "My body feels light as sand. My muscles feel packed together like clay, and my mana's roaring like a raging storm." He stood tall, the golden sand naturally swirling around his boots drawn by his newfound aura. "What is this? How'd I get this much stronger all of a sudden? What happened?" Klexi finally dropped the cryptic act. "The Sama's gallbladder. That's what." Zeon blinked, genuinely stunned by the revelation. Leaning back against the giant skeleton, Klexi casually took a bite of his roasted meat. For anyone crossing the desert, it's a priceless medicine. It gives you the strength to endure sun and sand alike. To caravans, it's worth as much as a magic stone. The realization hit Zeon like a ton of bricks. Klexi added, "Looks like it agreed with you better than I expected. Congratulations, idiot." Deeply touched, Zeon yelled, "Something that precious. And you really gave it to me?" Klexi immediately glared back, his gruff annoyance returning instantly. "TCH, I gave it to you because you're pathetically weak. If I'm hauling you around, you'd better be at least a little useful." But Zeon wasn't bothered by the harsh words at all. He skipped over with a huge, goofy grin. Got it. I'll be useful. Useful Zeon. Reliable Zeon." Klexi grunted, pointing his meat skewer. "Shut it and eat. We're not leaving until you finish all that meat." Above them, the swirling golden clouds painted a breathtaking, cinematic sky. Looking through the massive ribcage of a fallen beast, Zeon stretched his arms wide. "That was more than I thought. I actually got to eat my fill for once." Throwing his brand new black robe over his shoulders with an energetic swoop, he looked completely refreshed. Klexi called out, "All right, let's move out again, idiot." With a massive, radiant smile and a renewed sense of purpose, Zeon strode forward confidently. "Yes, sir." The desert was a relentless beast. A massive sandstorm brewed on the horizon, turning the sky into a swirling, golden sea. Caught in the thick of it was Zeon, trudging heavily through the unforgiving gales. He casually chewed on a tough piece of dried meat. He mused, "A sandstorm, huh? Thanks to my ability, it just feels like a cool breeze to me." Ahead of him, the old man trudged forward, an imposing figure refusing to stop for even a second. Zeon grumbled, but the old man just keeps marching without resting. Staring at Klexi's back, Zeon narrowed his eyes in annoyance. He hasn't said a word in days. TCH, is he hitting menopause or something? He pushed against the howling wind, leaning forward. "We've been walking nonstop for 2 weeks now. That guy, he doesn't know where he's going, right?" Suddenly, a massive, terrifying ant monster hissed right behind him. Zeon panicked, "Darn it. Don't tell me that crazy old man got us lost." With a swift, blurred motion, the old man swung his greatsword, slicing the beast away with a heavy thud. He calmly commanded, "Quit whining, kid." Zeon let out a heavy breath, wiping his brow. He whined softly, "Sigh. How much farther do we even have to go?" Just as the tension settled, Zeon's eyes darted sharply to the side. He questioned, "Oh." A menacing, heavily armored insect crawled from the dunes, clicking its mandibles. Zeon smirked. "Tough little guys, aren't you?" He crushed the creature under his heavy boot with a solid crunch. I was hoping we could just pass by quietly. No chance of slipping past this time. His detection radius pinged like crazy. Glowing red grids surrounded him in the dark. He thought, these guys are serious. Dropping into a low stance, golden sand began to swirl violently around his fingers. He challenged them. Fine, if you're coming, then hurry up and come out. He slammed his foot into the earth, launching himself forward. He muttered, if I dawdle, the old man will end me later anyway. A terrifying swarm of giant ants skittered down the rocky walls, charging straight for him with sharp hisses. Zeon pulled back his glowing hand, compressing the sand into a deadly force. He warned them, good. You listen well. Blaster. With a deafening explosion, a violent shockwave of sand erupted, blasting the monsters high into the sky. He stood tall amidst the falling debris. He smiled confidently. Gotta say, I really love days with sandstorms. There's sand everywhere you look. But when he turned around to check on his companion, the horizon was empty, save for a tiny speck miles away. He screamed, where did the old man go? Huh, hey old man, you can't just ditch me like that. A monstrous ant lunged at him, forcing him to leap back. He yelled, I've never seen anyone with zero sense of camaraderie like that. No wonder he's still wandering around alone at his age. Sliding through the dunes, a sudden chill went down his spine. He swallowed hard, wondering, he didn't hear that, right? His eyes widened in sheer panic. He thought, if he did, I'm so doomed. Now, this is where it gets interesting. John's detection radius was normally 10 meters. He always stayed alert, never letting his guard down. Because of that, the moment a beast appeared nearby, he could respond right away. However, what Zeon sensed just now was a little different. A colossal presence pinged on his radar, blanketing the entire area. The narration shifted. What he feels now is closer to fear than to any beast presence. The ground ruptured. Dozens of massive, horrifying ants burst from the sand in a frenzied horde. Zeon desperately threw up a wall of shifting sand to protect himself. He yelled, what the heck? How many of them are there? Where did an army like this even come from? Sweat poured down his face as he looked toward the distant cliff. He begged, old man, there's so many of these guys. Atop that very cliff, Klexi sat casually, resting on his massive sword and watching the chaos unfold with a smirk. Zeon dashed wildly through the tearing claws. He grit his teeth, no. How long am I going to keep calling for the old man like some kid? Surrounded by endless creeping shadows, he finally understood. He realized, there's no way he wouldn't notice trash like this, which means this is a quest the old man handed to me. A feral grin spread across Zeon's face. He taunted, you darn bug pests. 1,000 or 10,000. Bugs are still just bugs. He unleashed a sweeping crescent of pure kinetic sand, slicing through the air with a massive swoosh. Pushing his limits, he drove the attack forward, his eyes burning with absolute defiance. But the sheer numbers overwhelmed his defenses, and a heavy, jagged claw swatted him from the side. He was launched onto the back of a giant insect, tumbling uncontrollably. He screamed, ah, darn it. I take it back. How many of you monsters are there? Pinned under the crushing weight of the swarm, he raged, ganging up on me like cowards. Don't you pests have any shame? Fight me one-on-one like a man. Before he could finish, another group dogpiled him. He grunted, oh, shut it. A massive blast of sand erupted from the pile, scattering the creatures like dust in the wind. The tempest raged on, the desert storm acting as a chaotic, blinding backdrop to the slaughter. Riding a swirling pillar of sand, Zeon shot straight up into the sky to escape the biting jaws. Looking down, the horrific truth set in. The entire crater was swarming. He groaned, you gotta be kidding me. This is basically an ant nest. He caught his breath in the air. He planned, I need to get up high and get a read on the situation first. Luckily, these things can't fight in the air. Suddenly, a brutal force slammed into his back. He choked out, but here's the catch. Massive wing variations of the beasts intercepted him mid-air, bringing him crashing back down. Zeon's eyes shrank in absolute horror. He whispered, you're kidding me, right? There's no way this is actually happening. A spiked leg delivered a devastating blow, sending him plummeting toward the earth. He slammed into the harsh desert floor with a violent impact, tearing a trench through the sand. The wind was entirely knocked out of him. He cried out in agony, Gah! He lay prone on the sand, gasping for air as a dark crimson mark stained the earth beneath him. He panted heavily, Gah! Ha! Ha! Battered and broken. His face was marked with exhaustion and pain as the glowing red eyes of the horde closed in. He slowly tilted his head up. He stuttered, old man. Klexi sat majestically above the fray, silently observing him. Despite the devastating situation, a wide, crazed smile stretched across Zeon's stained face. Rising to his knees, surrounded by the towering shadows of monsters, he declared, you'd better watch closely. How I survive in here? Klexi's cape fluttered in the wind. The old man nodded in approval. That's more like it, idiot. Klexi's voice boomed over the howling wind. In this world turned to desert, Your ability is one heck of a blessing. You're probably all puffed up, dreaming of going back to Neo Soul and ruling over it. The old man glared down with a severe, knowing expression, without even realizing you might be the finest prey on the market. Plexi continued his harsh lesson. If there's one thing that hasn't changed since the world ended, it's the hardened fools clawing their way toward power. The strength of an awakened is power itself, and there's nothing they want more than an ability like yours. The final question hung heavily in the air. You want to get stronger? You want to survive? Zeon threw himself back into the fray, his hands glowing as he tore through the beasts. Plexi stated, if you've managed to live this long while being weak, then now it's time to survive as an awakened. Plexi sat like a king upon his rocky throne, watching the golden explosions rock the valley below. He challenged, let's see if you can last to the bitter end, in this insane world. Because, he added darkly, there is nothing more truly miserable than that. A thunderous explosion engulfed the city skyline in blinding flames. Plexi faced the devastating blast head-on. He recounted the dark history. The catastrophe 100 years ago is remembered as a single streak of light that exploded in an instant. That is how fast it all happened. The sheer scale of destruction left a devastating mark on everything. The people you loved were torn apart before your eyes. That memory carved so deep it reaches the bone. A crimson mist stained the ground as two hands reached out desperately. That moment is still crystal clear, even now. Plexi's voice dropped to a somber whisper. That is the fate of those who survive. He turned slightly, the burden of his past heavy on his shoulders. Survival means carrying all of this on your back and crossing the boundary between life and death, over and over again. Suddenly, a wide, confident grin spread across Plexi's weathered face. Back in the present, Zeon faced down a massive swarm of giant ants amidst the raging sandstorm. He thought to himself, right, there's no way I'm losing to beasts like this. Zeon let out a manic laugh, his eye glowing with wild energy. Ha! You feel it too, do you not? That you are all completely screwed. The giant ants scrambled aggressively over the dunes, their glowing red eyes locked on him. A swirling vortex of sand formed into a deadly point. Zeon analyzed it. Ultra-high-pressure compressed sand missile. It is the simplest and most brute force method. The compressed sand drill launched at him with a sharp hiss. But if I pack in gravity, wind, and every bit of energy I can use, he strategized as the ants surged forward. Zeon threw his arms wide. A thunderous explosion of golden energy erupted from him. The power multiplies dozens of times over. He roared with absolute ferocity. This is the end for all of you. Sending a shockwave that blasted the sand away, he shouted, before I get even stronger. The fact you could not end my threat, that is your loss. Plexi watched from a distance, chuckling softly. Cocky little brat, aren't you? Multiple sand missiles suddenly materialized above Zeon, dropping down with terrifying speed. He gasped in shock. Massive craters scarred the desert floor where the devastating impacts landed. Zeon clenched his fist, trembling with rage. GRR. Old man, you seeing this? Zeon yelled as he dodged a heavy strike. I'm going to wipe every last one of these insolent. Gah! A giant ant suddenly slammed into him from behind. He stuttered in absolute disbelief. How? Not a single sign of them. Zeon grabbed a deep wound on his chest, a crimson mist leaking from the injury. Stealth? No, there's no way trash like this has a high-tier skill like that. In that case, this must be. A terrifying realization hit him. Poison. Veins popped on his forehead as he struggled against the creeping paralysis. No wonder my mana control has been off for a while now. A poison that blocks mana flow. He screamed in defiance. Arg, you arrogant fools. With nonsense like this, you think you can take me down? With a heavy thud, a massive leg swept across his body, sending him flying. His vision blurred. Son of a... He muttered, before losing consciousness. When Zeon opened his eyes, he was lying face down in a dark, suffocating cave surrounded by creeping red eyes. Where the hell am I now? These ants. Is this their nest? A soft, disturbing sliding sound echoed as a pale creature approached his helpless body. A massive grub squirmed toward him, emitting a high-pitched chitter. He realized with horror. Larvae. The pale, fleshy grub slithered right up to his paralyzed arm. The creature clamped its pincers down onto him. Zeon lay there, exhausted and fading. My arms will not move. At this rate, I'm going to get eaten alive. A dark tear slid from his eye. He looked entirely defeated. Finally, a sudden, sharp shift in his gaze. That is enough. The grubs squirmed around him, eager for their meal. But here's the catch. Zeon's fist suddenly smashed into the ground with explosive force, crushing the threat with a heavy thud. A bright flash of energy blasted a nearby ant backward. Zeon slowly pushed himself up from the dirt, letting out a dark, raspy laugh. Ha ha, curse it all. His eye burned with a manic, terrifying resolve. Even in my life flashing before my eyes, there's not a single good memory. No way I'm fading away with this kind of nonsense. He unleashed his aura, roaring, "You arrogant ant fools!" A devastating shockwave of dark energy erupted from his very core. The giant ants recoiled in sheer terror. They were sent flying by the sheer force of his furious explosion. The cavern walls shattered, huge boulders collapsing as Zeon's power tore the nest apart. Zeon crouched amidst the falling debris, completely unfazed, his sheer willpower defying death itself. Zeon looked at his hands, disbelief washing over him. He realized his rank had increased by 1. The poison was completely gone, and he felt a surge of stamina and mana overflowing within him. He glanced down at his arm, staring at the glowing marks. He muttered in shock, "Did I rank up?" The difference was night and day. He could feel in his bones as he realized, my power, my mana, everything is on a completely different level compared to F rank. But as his golden eyes narrowed with intense focus, reality set back in. He thought, and yet. He glared at the massive wolf ant queen towering before him. Despite all his newfound power, he observed, "You do not have a single scratch on you." The beast lunged with terrifying speed, sending Zeon tumbling out of the way with a thunderous crash. Zeon dodged, just in time, rolling through the debris. He yelled, "This monster is smashing through the rock like it is made of sand. Just how strong is this thing?" The creature loomed in the dust, its multiple glowing eyes fixing on him like a predator ready to strike. Gritting his teeth, Zeon scrambled to his feet. He cursed under his breath. "Nonsense. My attacks have not even made a dent. This thing is completely insane." He dug his fingers into the rough ground, frustration boiling over. He knew he could not win like this. He stared down the imposing beast, analyzing his bleak situation. He concluded, no matter how much I attack right now, I will not be able to leave a single mark on it. But here's the catch. Zeon wasn't one to give up easily. He stretched his hand forward and thought, in that case, I have to think. I need a way to break its unbreakable armor. His eyes locked onto the beast's thick legs. A dangerous idea formed in his head. He plotted, without smashing it, without piercing it. I need a way to rip that armor right off. In a flash of desperate bravery, Zeon launched himself at the creature, grabbing hold of it tightly. The beast let out a sharp, surprised screech. Golden light erupted from his hands as he tightened his grip. He shouted with grim determination, "That is it. If I cannot break the armor, I will twist it and peel the thing off you whole." The cavern echoed with a deafening, agonizing shriek as the monster thrashed wildly in pain. A blinding burst of energy exploded from the creature's joint, accompanied by another piercing cry. Zeon planted his feet and pulled back with every ounce of his enhanced strength, a massive shockwave ripping through the cavern. Suddenly, Zeon screamed in agony, "Af! You arrogant monster! What in the world is this now?" Intense, invisible ripples slammed into his ears. He realized in panic, low-frequency waves? No, it is high-frequency. At this rate, my brain is going to explode. The wolf ant queen was unleashing a devastating, localized sonic attack right into Zeon's face. Enduring the unbearable pressure, his eyes glowing fiercely, he roared, "You stubborn pest! To the very end, I cannot believe you were hiding this." Crimson fluid began to leak from his eye, but his resolve only hardened. He declared with lethal intent, "Fine, let us end this right now, you absolute menace." The tension hit a breaking point. Zeon unleashed all his power, shouting, "Whether I fall, or you fall." Pushing beyond his absolute limits, a ferocious roar escaped his lips. "Until one of us is finished. Let's go, you wretched beast." Then, with a soft, echoing snap, something inside his mind simply gave out. His vision blurred as dark fluid streamed from his ears. He fell backward, whispering in confusion, What is happening? Why is my body failing?" The terrifying realization hit him. He groaned, "Nonsense! Was that my limit?" He collapsed completely onto the cavern floor, his strength abandoning him. He bitterly thought, this useless body, to be this pathetic and weak. Just as all hope seemed lost, a familiar, gruff voice broke the silence. The old man, Klexi, held Zeon up and stated, "You really are pathetically weak." Klexi gave a warm, toothy grin as he supported the exhausted boy. He teased, "You will catch your end sleeping here, you fool." Zeon looked up with a weak, crimson-stained smile. He stammered slightly to acknowledge the old man. Barely conscious, Zeon joked, "I will let you have the last hit. Klexi Barkalo. You disrespectful little brat. Well, I suppose you are not completely useless." Klexi's massive greatsword was firmly planted inside the defeated beast. Klexi praised him. "The wolf ant queen is a C rank, far stronger than you. But you did not give up. You fought until the very end. Well done. You have earned the right to live." Leaning against Klexi's leg, Zeon chuckled faintly. He confessed, I cannot hear a word you are saying. My eardrums, they're completely ruptured." Without missing a beat, Klexi grabbed on by the back of his coat and hoisted him up, shouting loudly, "Oh, so your eardrums got ruptured, huh?" Being dragged like a rag doll, Zeon protested, Hey, old man, where are you taking me all of a sudden?" Klexi did not answer. Instead, he effortlessly tossed Xion through the rubble toward a mysterious, glowing object. Xion landed near a strange, pulsating purple orb embedded in the rocks. He stuttered in confusion, asking what it was. He looked back over his shoulder at Clexi, his face full of uncertainty. He asked again, "Old man, what is this?" Clexi smirked, pointing to the wall where he had hastily carved a message. The carving read, "A queen's egg. Eat it. It is medicine. Strawberry flavored." Xion stared down at the ominous text etched into the stone floor. He muttered, "What on earth is this?" The dark lettering read, "The medicine of all evils." He thought to himself, "Am I actually supposed to eat this? Is that even something you can safely consume?" Holding the glowing, pulsating purple orb close to his face, a bead of cold sweat rolled down his cheek. He pondered, "Can it be done?" Seeking some shred of reassurance, Xion turned to Clexi. "Old man," he began cautiously, "just to be sure. This isn't like the Samma's gallbladder, right? It's not going to rot me from the inside first." Clexi just smiled, his eyes half closed in amusement. "Eat that, and you will perish," he chimed in cheerfully. Xion grimaced, thinking, "Darn it, I cannot hear a single word he is saying." With seemingly no other choice, Xion opened his mouth, hovering the strange orb over his tongue. He scoffed, "Whatever. It is not like I will really perish just from eating it." He swallowed hard, clamping his eyes shut. "I have no idea if it is actually strawberry flavored, though." Suddenly, his eyes shot wide open, gleaming with pleasant surprise. He shouted, "Oh, what is this? It is delicious." But that joy was fleeting. His pupils dilated drastically as his body froze in shock. He eagerly asked, "Got any MO dash?" before gasping, "Huh?" Without warning, massive, sharp protrusions burst violently from his chest. He collapsed backward, stuttering in horror. "Old man, what is this?" The orb caused what is known as intestinal reversal, or twisted gut. Literally, his insides were aggressively twisting and turning entirely inside out. You see, the life of an aquarium ant is notoriously brutal. Even ingesting a few forcibly twists every organ in the body. Most who consume them suffer the agony of having all their organs stabbed and overturned by invisible spikes. And in the end, they simply go mad from the agonizing pain and fade away. Xion writhed helplessly on the cavern floor, a jagged mass of spikes now protruding from his back. A dark, ominous mist filled the air around him as he screamed, "Arg! What on earth is this? What did you make me eat?" Clexi casually picked his ear, utterly unbothered by the horrific scene. He scolded, "You are noisy as a banshee. If you want to survive in this insane world, get used to it." Xion's cheeks puffed out, dark trails weeping from his eyes. He shrieked, "Get used to this? How on earth am I supposed to dash?" A violent eruption of dark energy burst from his chest. He choked out, "Darn it," followed by heavy, desperate coughing. Trembling uncontrollably, Xion lifted his hand, staring in absolute horror at the thick, dark fluid coating his fingers. His strength finally gave out. Slumping against the dirt, he whispered, "In the end, I really was just an idiot." "Old man." The cavern went completely still. Xion lay motionless, swallowed by the shadows, looking completely defeated. Leaving the boy to his fate, Clexi casually strolled over to the massive carcass of the ant monster. He muttered, "Now then, let's see." With a fierce, weathered grin, Clexi threw a devastatingly heavy punch straight into the beast's armored shell. His fist buried itself deep inside the creature's thick hide with a heavy crunch. With a sharp tug, Clexi pulled his arm back, tearing a glowing crystal out of the beast with a soft sliding sound. Holding the brilliantly shining magic stone in his palm, Clexi beamed. As expected, a magic stone from a beast like this is on a whole other level. We have got ourselves a winner. He glanced back at the massive carcass. And those ants look useful too, so I might as well haul everything back. Suddenly, Clexi paused. A sharp glimmer of awareness crossed his eyes as he noticed something behind him. His expression softened into a somber, knowing gaze. "My friend," he whispered softly. Looking back at Xion's spiked, unconscious form, Clexi sighed. "Yeah, I know, but there is nothing we can do. If you are weak, you fade away. That is all there is to your fate." He grabbed the hilt of his massive greatsword, turning his back to the fallen boy. But here's the catch. Clexi glanced over his shoulder, a cryptic look in his eye. "You haven't forgotten, have you?" he added, his tone hardening with urgency. "We don't have much time left." In the darkness, a quiet, rustling echoed from the shadows. Something was stirring. Clexi leaned in, a wide, teasing grin spreading across his face. "Yo, finally awake?" he teased before starting to say, "You idiot dash." Before he could finish, a thunderous explosion of dust and immense pressure violently erupted from the ground. Standing completely unfazed amidst the swirling debris, Clexi chuckled. "You are really something. What are you flailing around for, kicking up dust everywhere?" Well, Clexi said, watching in awe. Xion rose from the dirt, his hand glowing as massive, spiraling pillars of sand whipped violently around him. The jagged sand pillars shot straight toward Clexi. The old man grumbled, "Hey, idiot, Don't get cocky and just dash. A massive shockwave blasted through the cavern. Xion was thrown back helplessly, his mind spinning as he questioned why. A thunderous explosion of sand and force erupted right where Xion had just been standing. He thought wildly, why'd you try to end me? Falling through the heavy dust, feeling utterly betrayed, Xion screamed out, why? Reaching out with desperate, glowing eyes, Xion vowed, I'll never forgive you. Above them, the cavern roof gave way, and massive, razor-sharp stalactites plummeted from the ceiling. The heavy stone crashed down with a deafening rumble, narrowly missing the young survivor. The sheer force of the impact sent Xion tumbling across the cavern floor, as a huge cloud of debris swallowed him whole. As the dust finally settled, Xion stood there in the ruins, panting heavily. Completely bewildered, Xion asked, so, why did you do that? But Clexi interrupted with a heavy sigh. You idiot, what are you doing? Clexi stood calmly amidst the settling dust, his arms crossed. He asked, sure, the queen's eggs have enough in them to fry your brain, but you really couldn't think it through even a little? Xion stared in absolute disbelief. He yelled, what the heck? I was just standing there the whole time, and you're telling me you never even swung on my upper body? Clexi sighed again, shaking his head. You moron. You drop lifeless from a single punch, so why would I bother feeding you poison on top of that? Xion clutched his chest, the realization slowly dawning on him. He mumbled, that's so? But here's the catch. Clexi pointed to the spiked remains of the beast and explained, it is a lethal venom that overturns the gut of even a queen ant. And at the same time, it draws out the impurities hidden within. Depending on how it's used, it can be either poison or medicine. Stepping closer, the old man continued. Once the impurities are flushed out, mana floods in to fill the void. You felt it while you were fighting, didn't you? Xion looked down at his own chest and arm. Glowing, golden veins pulsed with incredible new power. Clexi noted, your mana's tripled, maybe even quadrupled. Tears welled up in Xion's eyes as he stared at his rugged mentor. He softly said, old man. With a sudden burst of overwhelming emotion, Xion tackled Clexi into a tight hug. He cried out, I'm sorry I doubted you. I must have lost my mind for a second, doubting the old man. Clexi grimaced, trying to peel the boy off. Yeah, you damn idiot. I get it now, get off. Having a guy hanging on me is disgusting. But Xion just squeezed tighter, yelling, I don't like this either. And hey, I can hear again. It had a healing effect too. He softly chided, idiot. Cut it out, you big baby. Get off. Looking down, Xion admitted, I didn't fight well enough. Clexi turned his back, adjusting his massive greatsword. He replied quietly, yeah, I know my friend. Sniffling and wiping his face, Xion mumbled, I really could have perished for real. Meanwhile, Clexi thought to himself, he only survived because this brat's tougher than he looks. Clenching his heavily armored fist, Clexi's thoughts darkened. If he doesn't get stronger fast, I've got no excuse. I gambled on absolute trash odds. Suddenly, Clexi snatched Xion up like a sack of potatoes. All right, idiot, time to move. Completely caught off guard, Xion yelped, huh? Clexi chuckled, don't forgive me. Idiot. Dangled helplessly over the old man's shoulder, Xion asked nervously, old man, then why are you grabbing me again? A wicked, far too toothy grin spread across Clexi's face. Pointing up toward the exit of the cavern, Clexi stated, we're short on time. Don't you think we should hurry out of here? Xion's eyes widened in sheer, absolute terror. He pleaded, oh, absolutely not. Don't tell me. Outside, in the sun-baked desert, a pair of giant scorpions were peacefully resting on the dunes. Suddenly, the ground exploded in a massive geyser of sand and stone as Clexi launched them straight into the sky. Soaring high above the clouds, Clexi roared with laughter. Ha ha, how's that, idiot? Way faster, right? Xion screamed, clinging for dear life. It's fast, my foot. Can we please just walk like normal for once? Clexi just grinned wildly at the terrified boy. He teased, says the guy who slept for 4 days straight. Still soaring through the air, Clexi continued his teasing. You're so weak, at this rate you'll never even get married, but suddenly his smile vanished. He muttered, hold on, that's... Xion, still shaking, peeked over Clexi's shoulder. He asked, what now? At this point, there's nothing left that could dash. The words died in his throat. Xion gasped, huh? Far below them, shrouded in the golden light of the desert, walked the Titan. Xion breathed out, you've got to be kidding me. What in the world is that? The colossal, rocky head of a gargantuan beast pushed slowly through the dunes. Xion stammered. It's at least 30 kilometers away, and it's still that huge. As they plummeted back towards the earth side by side, Clexi remarked, not giving us a moment to breathe, are they? That's the mobile fortress, Archilon. The beast's massive, stony foot slammed into the sand. Clexi explained, yeah, it started out as a turtle-type B-rank beast, but in terms of defense, it outclasses even S-ranks. They got the shell, reinforce it, and ride it like a fortress. Xion yelled, incredulous. That insane monster, you're riding around on it. Clexi smirked confidently. That's right. Take a good look, idiot. Staring at the towering behemoth, Xion's entire perspective shifted. He whispered, the world is this big. landing safely on a high dune. Clexi looked out over the wasteland and said, and there are monsters out there who ride monsters like that. The sheer scale of Archilon eclipsed the sky itself. Clexi commanded, etch it into those eyes of yours. Suddenly, a figure plummeted from the glowing clouds, crashing directly onto the ridge above them. A devastating explosion of blinding light and sand erupted as the newcomer landed, forcing Zeon and Clexi to brace themselves against the violent winds. An ominous voice echoed through the dust. Well, with so many around, I wasn't sure at first, but as expected, it's you, Zeon stuttered. What the? But Clexi quickly warned him, don't move, idiot. Through the settling dust, a single, cold blue eye peered through a wire-rimmed monocle. The voice whispered, it's been a long time. An imposing older man with a flowing white beard stood before them. Clexi recognized the mysterious threat instantly, muttering his name with heavy tension. Deoden. Diodon's booming voice cut through the dusty air as he flashed a wide, menacing grin. Haven't seen you in a while. Looks like you've lost even more teeth. Pavilsa. The old clan leader, named Pavilsa, barely blinked. He sighed. Good grief. You're the one who's abnormal. You're over 100, yet you're still so energetic. Pavilsa shifted his gaze between his old rival and the young survivor, trailing behind him. Anyway, what brings you here? This isn't exactly your territory. Deoden shrugged nonchalantly. Ah, well, the scavengers are infesting the place. Zeon scoffed, wiping a streak of sweat from his brow. Running away from mere scavengers? You've clearly grown old for nothing. But inwardly, Zeon thought, it's called being wise, unlike a brute like you. A heavy bead of nervous sweat rolled down Zeon's face. He thought, wait, isn't it normal to get weaker with age? How are these grandpas so incredibly strong? Pavilsa let out a sharp whistle, turning his back on the bickering duo. Forget it. There's no point talking to you. A deep, ominous rumble shook the ground, scattering the loose desert sand as a massive shadow loomed over them. Zeon fell to his knees, his golden eyes wide with absolute awe. Whoa, that's insane. Before them stood a colossal, rock-like creature, its majestic form towering into the clouds. Deoden adjusted his cloak. Let's go. Zeon swallowed hard, pulling his hood closer as a wave of apprehension washed over him. Staring into the deep, ancient abyss of the Archelon's massive eye, Zeon's survival instincts kicked in. I had better stay quiet here, he reminded himself. Pavilsa peered down closely at Zeon, his monocle glinting in the light. That is a face I haven't seen before, he murmured. Is he your subordinate? Without a second thought, Deoden hoisted Zeon up by the scruff of his cloak like a stray kitten. Well, I decided to do my part for the environment and picked up a bit of trash. Pavilsa struck a match and puffed his pipe, a cloud of smoke swirling around his white beard. To think a man like you would actually bring someone along. The old clan leader adjusted his glasses, his expression growing deadly serious. The world must be coming to an end. Zeon's jaw practically hit the floor. Whoa, holy nonsense, he gasped, completely ignoring the old men's banter. Sunlight poured through the cracked shell of the behemoth, revealing a bustling, vibrant city hidden right inside the beast. What kind of place is this? Zeon breathed out. It's the Mort clan, Deoden explained casually. Zeon blinked in confusion. A clan? You mean they're all blood-related? But here is the catch. Deoden chuckled, gesturing to the smiling people below. Yeah, they are all Pavilsa's direct descendants. A bunch of fools who think they're the chosen ones. In reality, they're completely useless without the Archilon. Pavilsa bristled, throwing a sharp glare over his shoulder. Oomph. What do you know about our clan to be running your mouth like that? Deoden leaned over the railing, a vicious smirk on his face. I know plenty. They're just a bunch of parasites who will be abandoned by the Archilon once you kick the bucket. Am I right? Pavilsa's jaw tightened, but he chose not to take the bait. Let us save that conversation for later. With a sharp slide and a heavy thud, Deoden kicked open the heavy double doors to the clan leader's quarters. Making himself right at home, Deoden propped his heavy boots onto the ornate table. Fine, shall we take a look at the goods first? Pavilsa sighed in defeat. Be my guest. Deoden raised his hand, and the air warped around his fingers as a dark, swirling subspace portal tore open. A cascading waterfall of glittering gold, rare gemstones, massive weapons, and exotic monster remains crashed onto the floor. Zeon gripped the edge of the table, his mind short-circuiting at the sheer wealth. Whoa, holy wow, what is all this? Just how many things did you end? Deoden cast a sideways glance at him. You will be joining the pile soon enough. Cold sweat formed on Zeon's forehead. Anyway, Grandpa, I have been wondering, are you a magic type? Where are you pulling all this from? Pavilsa examined a glowing purple orb through his monocle. Deoden scoffed at the boy's ignorance. Huh, you don't even know about subspace? Ugh, I can't believe I'm traveling with such an idiot. Zeon snapped, his patience wearing thin. Would it hurt you to just tell me? Deoden instantly raised a glowing, razor-sharp claw, his eyes flashing dangerous warning. Look at this punk. You dare talk back to me? Ignoring the chaos, Pavilsa held a pristine fong up to the light. Impressive as always. Every single piece is top quality. Flawless. Daoden leaned in. All business now. Cut the flattery. How much can you give me? Shall I pay you in mana stones? Pavilsa teased. In a blur of motion, Daoden slammed his blade into the desk, mere inches from the old man's hand. Pavilsa sweated. Now, it was a joke. You have no sense of humor. Pavilsa brushed himself off, recovering his composure. You don't have much use for mana stones anyway. So what do you want? Daoden took a calm sip of hot tea, a breastplate made from the remains of the wolf ant queen. The warm tea rippled softly in his cup as he continued. And Zeon rubbed a fresh bump on his head, completely lost. A subspace tool as well, Daoden finished. Pavilsa dug into his ear, looking genuinely puzzled. What use do you have for a breastplate? And you already have plenty of subspace storage. Daoden grabbed the fabric of Zeon's hood, pulling him backward. It is not for me. He rested a large hand heavily on the boy's head. It's for this idiot. Pavilsa's eye widened behind his monocle in sheer disbelief. Oh, now, this is where it gets interesting. Pavilsa studied Zahn intensely, thinking the great Daoden would care about someone else. The kid must be pretty useful to him. Having made up his mind, Pavilsa's voice echoed powerfully through the grand halls. Kaylee. A crisp, rhythmic clicking of boots rapidly approached the heavy doors. Both Zeon and Daoden turned their attention toward the entrance as the massive doors slowly began to creak open. Zeon's eyes softened, a faint blush dusting his cheeks as he caught sight of the newcomer. Whoa! A young woman stepped into the room, her tactical gear shifting with a soft clatter. Did you call for me? Grandfather? She asked, her blue eyes scanning the room. Zeon stood frozen, entirely captivated. She's beautiful, he thought. Pavilsa stepped forward. Do you still have that subspace bracelet you made before? Kaylee tapped her chin thoughtfully. I don't have a bracelet, but I do have a gauntlet. The enchantment turned out so well that I've been keeping it safe. Pavilsa nodded decisively. That gauntlet. Give it to the kid. Kaylee practically jumped out her skin. What? But it's so precious. Suddenly, Daoden leaned forward with a menacing grin. Oh, so that little girl became an enchanter? Huh. Oh, hello there. You're still as energetic as ever. Kaylee flinched violently, stepping back. Daoden laughed, a booming, rumbling sound. Enchanters are rare, even in Neo Soul. As expected of Pavilsa's granddaughter, you have gained quite a useful skill. Kaylee trembled, forcing out a polite response. Ah yes, I suppose so. Seeing her extreme discomfort, Pavilsa intervened. You must be uncomfortable, so hurry and get out. And tell Noelle to craft a breastplate. Relieved to escape, Kaylee saluted. Understood. Hey you, follow me. I will give you that gauntlet. Zeon eagerly trailed behind her. Yes, ma'am. Coming. With a heavy clunk, the grand doors shut, leaving the two old titans alone to discuss their business. The warm sunlight bathed the bustling stone pathways as Zeon followed Kaylee through the magnificent inner city. Kaylee shot a highly suspicious glare over her shoulder. Hey, what is your relationship with that monster? Zeon rubbed his cheek awkwardly. Monster? Oh, you mean that old man? We met by chance, and now I'm just being dragged around. Kaylee spun around, grabbing him by the collar in sheer panic. What? By chance? And he's dragging you around while you are still alive. That monster is doing that. Zeon stared into her wild, trembling eyes, recognizing the familiar, heavy dread swimming in them. Ah, this woman. I can see it. A grim realization settled over him. She probably has the same PTSD as I do. On finished his thought, recalling the horrific sight of Daoden gleefully tearing beasts apart in a shower of crimson mist, shouting how they tasted best when ripped apart by bare hands. Releasing him, Kaylee hugged herself with a shiver and stormed off. Well, anyway, you had better be careful, because he is a monster in human skin. Trust me, I know. Arriving at a sturdy, blast-resistant metal door, Kaylee struck a proud pose with her hands on her hips. Is this the place? Zeon asked. Kaylee grinned wildly, showing off her slight fangs. Yep, my workshop. Throwing the doors open, Kaylee warned him. Try not to be too shocked. You have probably never seen anything like this in your life. Zeon let out a choked gasp, his eyes bulging as he stammered. This is... The room was a sprawling armory packed to the ceiling with gleaming weapons and enchanted gear. Are all of these items? He shouted. That's right. Kaylee boasted. Every single one is an item I've worked on. Aside from dungeon drops, these are absolute masterpieces. Kaylee lovingly nuzzled a dark, heavy gauntlet, her cheeks flushed with absolute pride. And look, do you see the harmony between this armored starfish frame and the adamantium? It has subspace storage and even a restoration function. It is a masterpiece among masterpieces. Zeon's eyes sparkled with sheer excitement. Restoration? Does that mean it can self-repair? Exactly. Kaylee practically purred. It even has a fire attribute attached. Depending on what fire attribute item you equip with this, you'll become an unimaginable monster. Overwhelmed by its immense value, Zeon hesitated. Is it really okay for me to take something like this? Kaylee hugged it tighter, pouting slightly. Well, grandfather told me to give it to you, so... She slowly offered it to him. Oh, and you can only put something in here once. You cannot take it out again, so keep that in mind. Zeon reached out greedily. I will remember. I will take it with grad dash. He grabbed the gauntlet, but she utterly refused to let go. Zeon blinked. I too. A fierce, ridiculous tug of war began right there in the workshop, neither of them willing to back down. With a desperate shriek, Kaylee dug her heels into the stone floor. Aya! She yanked so hard they both collapsed to the floor. I can't. I won't. I am not giving my precious child to a nobody like you. Zeon gritted his teeth, pulling back with all his might. What do you want me to do? Damn it. With a final, desperate heave, Zeon ripped it from her grasp, cackling like a madman. Huh. Sorry, but this is mine now. The child you raised with such care is now Dash. But before he could celebrate his victory, a massive, deafening tremor ripped through the room. Dust rained down as the entire city violently shook. Zeon clutched the gauntlet, looking wildly around. He nervously stuttered, Should I get it back? Kaylee screamed in sheer panic. That is not it. The color drained completely from Kaylee's face, leaving pure terror. The Archelon's cry. It's them. Struggling to maintain his balance as the ground pitched, Zeon stuttered. Who are them? Kaylee stared up at the trembling ceiling, a look of absolute dread washing over her features. Back in the grand hall, Deodin and Pavilsa felt the massive shockwave, their relaxed expressions instantly turning deadly serious. Pavilsa's eye narrowed into a sharp, dangerous glare behind his monocle. Persistent pests. Far out in the endless desert, kicking up a massive storm of dust, a heavily armed horde rode violently toward the Archelon fortress. Well, that's all for today. If you like this video, give it a big like, and yeah, don't forget to share and subscribe.